July 22nd, Port Orchard City Council business meeting. And just remind you to speak into your microphone and of our guiding principles in the actions we're about to take this evening. Are we raising the bar in all of our actions? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building positive connections with our community and outside partners? And is the decision-making process equitable and inclusive community? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, council members, we have a published agenda. Are there any proposed amendments to this evening's agenda? Rosepepe?
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Rosepepe, a second by Councilmember Diener to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been set for tonight. We have our first citizen comment period. Anybody wishing to address the council, please step to the microphone and identify yourself for the record. And you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, my name is Robert Showers, and first of all, I'd like to address this to the council and the mayor. And I don't want you to take anything personal. It's just my observation of what's going on. My name is Robert Showers, and I have been a resident of Port Orchard for over 45 years. I attend the council meetings as often as I can. As a result of the last one I attended just confirmed to me how dysfunctional the council is. There seems to be a communication problem between the council, the mayor, and the administrative department. This was evident on July 15th when there was discussion on the Community Event Center presentation. Looking at the expression on some of your faces confirmed you had never discussed any items associated with the event center. I was shocked in the availability of the restroom facilities, men and women and children sharing. That is not appropriate and unacceptable. I realize this community event center excuse me, has been planned for a long time, but it would seem a project like that would be discussed more often. As far as the services of the city, when you ask for help on subjects affecting citizens and regulations, I have a hard time getting answers. There are people who want to help, but a lot of time when you come to the city, the person needed is either off for the day, working from home, and it just gets frustrating for the citizens. After a while, people get disgusted. A citizen's time is just as important as the people who work for the city. One issue is the waterfront. With all the building going on, current residents, are they protected? What happens to their view of the water when apartments go up? Did the owners of the business building across from the new one going up, did they ever get compensated for their loss due to the condos and the apartments going up? If there isn't any regulation on that, then maybe the city could help establish one. Other issues are the standard ones, the roads, the sidewalks, and the general appearance of the city. Getting answers from the council seems to be a problem also. Seems like they have to get permission to speak. Finally, I suggest the council look at the form of government Port Orchard has. My understanding, it's a mayor-council form of government. I think the council has a right to say no, period. And I'm done. Any questions or?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Showers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the council, please identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak to you for this few minutes. My name is Diane Canifex. I am co-founder and director of an organization called Kitsap Animal Rescue and Education. We're known as CARE. I'm here to speak on behalf of the homeless community of Kitsap County. One of the biggest barriers to homelessness and homeless people wanting to find shelter is they can't take their pets. Most of you, I think, are aware that in January, there was a new shelter called a co-shelter that opened on Mile Hill that allows pets. I am here to let you know about an opportunity. In August, on the 7th, there will be an agency called My Dog Is My Home who will be here from the East Coast to meet with anybody who's interested in finding out more about co-sheltering, how to implement it safely, and what the barriers are and how we can mitigate those barriers. I have been involved in this project with the Pacific Building for about 2.5 years. We now run the pet center there at the co-shelter, and it's been very, very successful. The executive director and operations manager both have said it's going pretty much flawlessly. So I wanted to let you know of this opportunity. I hope that at least 1 or 2 of you will be able to fit it into your schedule so that we can try to open up shelters to more people and their pets. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave these flyers with Brandy. And for those of you who are old school like me and have to have papers, she can give you copies, and otherwise I can email them to you if you want electronically. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone online wishing to address the council, use the raise your hand feature and the clerk will bring you into the meeting. No one raising their hand, and I see no one else in the audience. So I'm going to close the first citizen comment period. We're to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Councilmember Rosapepe.
Mayor, move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rosapepe and a second by Councilmember Trenary. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been approved. We have 2 presentations tonight, both of them by Mr. Bond, and the first one is the lien management process that we started here a few weeks ago, and he's going to give the City Council an update on where we're at on this.
All right, good evening, council members and mayor. I'm pleased to report out tonight that the Department of Community Development has recently completed a lien process improvement exercise, and I wanted to report out to the City Council on the results of that exercise. The city was able to take advantage of a free service offered by the State Auditor's Office, and this program was conducted on July 7th through 9th and was facilitated by staff from the Auditor's Office. We put together a project team led by our facilitator. I was the project sponsor, and our new permit center manager, Lisa Stone, was the go-to person. And we had a number of team members from Public Works and DCD that sat in to advise this lien exercise, as well as some on-call team participants who were brought in for portions of the discussion, mostly from finance, and then one person from Public Works on our utility work order process. We put together a project charter, and I'm going to paraphrase, but essentially we wanted to look at the time involved in a single-family building permit application from the date that you apply for the permit until the certificate of occupancy is issued. And essentially we were looking for bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and our targets for this exercise were to educate the mayor and council on the process and report out to you, which is what we're doing tonight. We wanted to clearly identify the process and timing for each department's steps in the permit review process and identifying any delays or bottlenecks, as I mentioned. We wanted to focus on software and process especially, and try to figure out how to gain efficiencies where possible. What we did was we started out with our first day of this 3-day exercise was mapping our processes, and this was done in the City Council chambers, and the sheet that you see on the screen here is covered in Post-it notes that outline the workflow that occurs with each single-family building permit from the application until certificate of occupancy. We broke it down into 7 phases, starting with the submission phase, the plan review phase, which occurs concurrently with our utility work order phase, where somebody can pay for their utility connection and get approved for a water and sewer connection to be provided by the city. There's the permit issuance phase, the inspection phase, the certificate of occupancy phase, and then in some cases there are revisions to an issued permit, and so that had its own separate piece of paper, which is a separate process apart from our standard process. What we found in terms of our mapping was that first step, the submission phase. Typically, it takes 7 days for the city to pull a permit out of the Camino software and put it into the SmartGov software. The City Council purchased Camino, I think, about 2 years ago, and the great thing about Camino is that it improves the quality of the submittals we're getting by leading applicants through a step-by-step process, making sure that they're providing all the information that's needed and that we're getting more complete submittals. What it also did is it allows repeat applicants to pre-populate all of their contact information, and it makes it really easy for them to submit multiple applications. As an example, right before our code changed at the 1st of July this year, D.R. Horton was able to submit over 50 permits in a 2-day period because of how easy Camino has made things, which in effect has made our permit center now the bottleneck rather than our application forms that you used to have to fill out individually. So the actual work of transferring a permit from Camino to SmartGov takes 1 day, but at our current staffing level, we're really only able to move about 4 to 6 permits per day from Camino into SmartGov, and we are looking to increase that capacity slightly. We're training some new staff that's been hired in the past few months, but right now that's about the limit. And so if we have a whole bunch of permits come in at once, that 7-day period can increase. And when we see code changes, when the building codes change, we will get a significant surge of permit applications all at once, and it takes us a while to work through those. But in normal conditions, we're at about 7 days to get something out of Camino once it comes in. The next step in the process is our plan review process, and a custom plan or tract home where you're not reusing a plan set that is established as a basic plan set. Those are taking 2 weeks per review cycle and typically 3 review cycles, meaning that you have to submit revisions 2 times after your initial submittal to make corrections and get things so that they comply with code before a permit can be issued. That 6-week period, the 3 2-week periods, does not include the time that we spend waiting for the applicant to actually make those revisions. So when I say it takes 6 weeks for us to complete plan review, that's sort of when the ball is in our court and we actually have something to work on. That does not include sometimes 6 or 8 weeks waiting for an architect to make revisions to plans. On the other hand, our basic plans, when D.R. Horton is currently the only builder who is taking advantage of these, those are a 2-week review from the date you apply until the permit is issued, because they are a pre-approved plan set essentially, and we're just doing site plan review. I mentioned that we do utility work orders concurrent with plan review, and that process is handled by both DCD, Public Works, and the Finance Department, and those take about 2 to 3 weeks to work their way through the process. One of the things that we learned is that when, like D.R. Horton is using basic plans, their plans are ready to issue sometimes before the work order has been completed, and so there's a little bit of a delay in the work order process when a basic plan is used. And the good news here is that we have already begun to look at using our Laserfish software, and by the end of the year, we're going to have a more automated process for our utility work orders that should solve this bottleneck. But for now, there can be a bottleneck at times, but not most of the time. Permit issuance is relatively straightforward. Once everything has been approved, once the plan review has been complete and the utility work orders are completed and the fees have been paid, we can issue permits within 1 to 2 days' time. And so the total time from submission to permit issuance is about 52 days while the ball is in the city's court. And of course, that doesn't include time spent waiting for revisions. Sometimes there's additional time while we're waiting for fees to be paid, and a permit may sit there ready to be issued, but it doesn't actually issue because either the applicant wants revisions or they have to pay the fees. After permit issuance, inspections take, they can take a long time or a short time depending on the builder. We are averaging 13 inspections by our building department, 4 of which are re-inspections on a single family home. So typically, you will fail 4 of your inspections and pass the other 5. The Public Works Department is doing 5 public works inspections related to the building of one home. And so, again, it just depends on the builder how long that's going to take. And then our certificate of occupancy process, the process of actually signing the certificates of occupancy, those are typically batched, and so we sign a bunch of them twice a week. We're not doing them continuously, but it's a relatively quick one-day process. So the purpose of our exercise was to identify process waste. And as far as city operations are concerned, there are 5 types of waste that are identified. The first being an underutilized resource, waiting, time spent while work is in process, rework, where you're essentially redoing or re-entering information that has already been entered, overproduction, basically producing more items than is needed at that stage in the process, and then motion, which can be physically paper moving through your department. And so what we did with our process map is we went through each of the steps, and you can see that there are little sticky tabs that we attach to the Post-it notes, and each of the colors of those tabs correspond to one of the different types of waste. So we went through the process map and tried to identify where the waste exists in our department. And again, this was only for single-family homes, but there's applicability here to all sorts of other permit types. So I want to talk about the bottlenecks that we identified through this process and the type of waste that each of these bottlenecks represents. I mentioned that permits sit in our Camino system waiting to be brought into SmartGov. And so the permit center and our ability to process those Camino submittals is essentially a bottleneck now. There are 2 separate software systems. Camino generates an application, but then that application has to be manually entered into SmartGov. And we are aware that the county has a custom IT solution that helps automate this process. And so we are now I reached out to the Director of Community Development for the county and have asked them to put me in touch with their IT folks and put them in touch with our IT folks in the hope that we can maybe make this process work a little bit smoother. But the types of waste here, there are 4 of them listed, and really it is duplication of information. The applicant is keying things into Camino, and then we are retyping all of that same information over again. And so it's a waste of staff resources. The other bottleneck related to data entry that we found is that not only are files being uploaded to Camino, we are having to pull those files out of Camino, and we are storing them in the regular Windows file management system. And so our permit center staff has all of these guidelines on how file structures are to be organized, and they're manually having to move these files around and make sure that they're organized in the right place. And our SmartGov system, if it was fully utilized, it can serve as both a file management system and a point of upload, but we are not using it in that way. And so this is another instance where we're redoing work. We have an underutilized resource, and there's just time spent waiting for all of these steps to occur. Our next bottleneck that we identified is how we process payments. And in order to calculate what somebody pays for a plan review fee, we can't even do that until the permit is entered into SmartGov, and then it spits out what the permit fee is, and it generates a permit fee sheet. We then transmit that fee sheet to the applicant, to the finance department, who has to then key in that information into the finance software, and so they're duplicating work by putting it into the finance software. And then that can be provided to the applicant so that the applicant can actually pay the fees that are owed. Then the finance department generates a receipt which has to be brought back to DCD, where we can tell SmartGov that the fee has been paid and that the permit gets routed. And so we are doing a lot of rework, and we are not utilizing our resources. We are also spending time because sometimes the finance department, they can't always turn those fee sheets around right away. And so it is something that costs time and is a bit of a waste of resource. I mentioned that we had this bottleneck in the utility work order process, and so the good news there is that we have found a way to automate this, but at least right now, it's going from the permit center to Public Works, back to the permit center, to the finance department for a 2-step review, then to the applicant to pay connection fees so that the permit can be issued. So there's a lot of information moving around, and one of the things that we learned was each department really didn't know what the other department's role was, and DCD, for instance, didn't know that there were two people reviewing it and who the primary and who the backups were. And so we never actually knew where in the process these things were, or if we needed to issue a permit, whose desk is it sitting on and who do we need to call. And so by the end of the year with using Laserfiche, this should be automated and is a pretty easy thing to streamline. So the other thing that we learned is that when applicants pick up their permit, they have to sign for the permit, but they also have to initial each permit condition. Currently, this is being done with a PDF document via email, where they're having to open the PDF, put their initials all over the document, or print it out and scan it, and then return it via email. And again, this is a step that could be automated through one of our permit softwares. And so, you know, this is another example of where waste exists in the system and is taking a lot of our staff resources, and which otherwise could potentially be automated. This next bottleneck has to do with failing an inspection, and I'm going to preface this by saying this is not necessarily a bad bottleneck, because, and I'll walk you through the process, but I'm going to start out with this code section on the right. The building code requires that a builder not call for an inspection until the work is ready for inspection. And so this is one of the challenges that we have, is people are often calling for inspections before they're actually ready. But when somebody fails an inspection for the second time, it triggers a reinspection fee, which triggers a payment through SmartGov that then has to go to finance and then back to SmartGov. So if you fail an inspection a second time, you're penalized because you have to wait for us to process your payment. The other thing that we learned is that when you fail an inspection, you can't request a new inspection until the inspector has gotten back to the office, entered the inspection results into the system, and then the system will let you request that new inspection. And it's, you know, it's a bottleneck for the developer more than it is for the city, but it also, by failing an inspection, it serves as something that discourages people from calling for an inspection when they aren't actually ready for that inspection. So we'll talk about this a little bit more later in the presentation. The other bottleneck we found, and I mentioned there was a resubmittal process that was on a separate mapped piece of paper, and the challenge that we have is when we issue a permit, you can't reopen that permit when a revision occurs. You actually have to create a new file number and a new permit in SmartGov if it's going to be in SmartGov, or what we're currently doing is actually routing these revisions via email, and so there's no tracking of this workflow in SmartGov, and so sometimes these things are dropping off of people's radar, or they're missing an email, and sometimes there are delays and we're having to track down who has done what with this process. The good news here is that we are working on a solution with SmartGov to build out a feature in the system that will hopefully solve this. So once we went through the process of identifying our bottlenecks, we really wanted to identify the top 3 big issues that we're facing, but also identify the really small, easy to solve issues. And we found 7 items that were low-hanging fruit. And then there's one big elephant in the room that I'm going to talk about last. So the top 3 priorities for eliminating waste, number 1 was the payment system. And this is a significant amount of waste in terms of the time spent waiting, rework, and just not using the resource. SmartGov has the ability to take payments. Every jurisdiction in Kitsap County is using SmartGov for that purpose, but it requires us to, in order to use SmartGov for that purpose, it will generate an end-of-the-day report. That report then has to be imported into our finance software and reconciled. And so you're shifting what the finance department would be doing from processing payments to doing this end-of-day reconciliation. And there may also be a cutoff or a timing component where after a certain point in the day, we can't issue more permits because the fees have to be reconciled, or somebody has to stay and work late to do that sort of thing. So it isn't an impossible challenge, but we do have to contract with a credit card vendor and get that feature set up. But I think it's one of the biggest wins we could get just using our current system. The other thing that we learned about with payments is that some payments are being mailed as a check rather than being processed as a credit card transaction. And often we're waiting 5 to 10 days for something to come in the mail, and the permit is just sitting on somebody's desk waiting to be routed until that payment is received. We charge a 3% fee to use a credit card for permits, And I think one of the things that we could potentially do is, rather than charging a surcharge on the credit card, is just internalize that cost in our permit fees to encourage people to use credit cards, which is going to make us more efficient and not have us sitting on permits for a long period of time. So I think that's a potential recommendation that should be explored. I think we only have one of our main builders that is insisting on using checks at this point in time, but sometimes, you know, the mail isn't as fast as it used to be, and we spend a lot of time waiting, and sometimes these things are getting routed and reviewed before we've even received payment, just the way that our current system is set up. So then the next priority for eliminating waste is our inspection policy. And I mentioned that a lot of owners and builders are calling, well, first of all, we have an inspection portal. And so you can request your inspections online. We have a few builders that build a lot of homes who are refusing to use the portal, and they're insisting on emailing us or calling us to schedule inspections. We think that we need to require that our builders use the portal. We can make exceptions for the mom and pop or the small business that's trying to get set up that doesn't regularly use the system, but any regular users of the system, we need to be directing them to the portal. And that's a policy change that I would like to make, but I don't want to make it without everybody on council nodding their head saying, yes, you have my permission to tell all the builders they have to use this, and that if they call, we're going to refuse to help them. The other issue that I mentioned is that builders are scheduling inspections speculatively, hoping that they're ready. And we frequently are showing up to sites and they are still framing the house and they're wanting a framing inspection, and so we immediately drive off, but they have taken a slot that would have been available to another builder. And so we're filling up our calendar with a few bad actors at the expense of the people who are waiting and doing the right thing and waiting until the inspection, they're ready for the inspection. And I think we need to find a way to discourage this. And I have spoken with some in the development community, and they don't think that a fee is a penalty. Builders will happily pay the fee in the hopes that they can gain a day on their project. I think we need to consider two things: changing the deadline for canceling an inspection when you aren't ready, so that if you're not ready and you cancel it, and it's within 24 hours, you're going to just fail the inspection, and then you have one chance to pass, and if you fail again, you pay the fee. But I think we should also consider increasing the waiting period. If we show up on a site and somebody isn't ready, the penalty could be a 48-hour waiting period where you're not going to get another inspection on that site for 2 days, as a way to make sure that they are ready before they call it in. I think that requires a little bit more discussion and probably talking to the KBA about that proposed change. But I think that we have just a few people who are taking advantage of the system in that way, and then other builders who are ready are having to wait an extra day to get an inspection. The third priority for eliminating waste is, we learned through this process that the permit center was, based on requests from building department plan reviewers, had started changing file structures, and they hadn't communicated that to the other departments. And so the building department file structure is different than the land use and public works file structure, and our reviewers didn't know where to go to find the most recent information. So the good news is that we've identified a problem, and now that people understand where to go, they know where to find the information. But we have decided that we need to start a working group internally to really focus on what our file structure looks like and make sure that it makes the most sense to everybody and isn't just one department making changes that makes the other department less efficient. And so this isn't a big policy change, but it is something that's going to require some work and will be a potential change in how we do business. As far as the low-hanging fruit that we uncovered, we did learn, one of the things that we do to try to make ourselves more efficient is that we have a lot of standard conditions that get issued on a building permit. For single-family residences, there's probably 20 or 30 conditions that are applicable to all permits, and so they are pre-populated on the permit. But because the permit conditions are already pre-populated, our clerical staff can't tell for sure that somebody's actually gone in and read through all of them and made sure that they apply. And there is a feature in SmartGov that even though you have a step that says you're supposed to be reviewing this, you can ignore that alert and hit approve. And so some permits were advancing through without having any QA/QC on what conditions were actually listed on the permit. And so we're going to number one, we need to do a better job of training all of our plan reviewers so that they're all working under the same assumptions and know that they can't hit that ignore button. That ignore button, you know, if they get that warning, they actually have to do something. But we also talked about whether we ought to be pre-populating conditions, and I think for building permits, it would be a whole lot extra work to add each of the 20 conditions onto the permit versus having them pre-populated, but we are discussing what this looks like going forward. Another issue that we learned about is that we've had a lot of turnover and we've had some reorganization, especially on the public works side, and people in planning or people in building don't know the roles of the people in the other departments clearly. And so just simply providing an org chart that isn't just how are we structured as an organization, but who is doing what is a document that when we hire somebody new, we hand it to them and say, this is who is taking care of different steps, and this is who you call if you're waiting on something. And then that's something that needs to be updated regularly. Another item that came up is that when we receive permits, we are creating a transmittal sheet that outlines who the project leads are, where the files are located. It has a whole bunch of information, and it is a Word document that we produce for every permit that comes in the door. And we learned that there's a whole lot of extra information on there that nobody's using. So we found a way to simplify a form that hopefully will save our clerks time and they don't have to fill out quite as much information. We're implementing that change right away. Another change that we learned, and this does have budget implications, but we haven't done a facilitated SmartGov training where SmartGov actually comes and trains our employees since we switched to SmartGov in 2015. So we have a whole lot of new employees who have gotten trained internally by our permit center staff, but there are new features that have been added and we need to put some money in the budget to actually have regular software training. We also learned that Bluebeam, some people are using Bluebeam more than others. It's the plan review software that we open PDFs in and can annotate and make notes and cloud issues on plans and communicate back as we send back revisions. But we actually learned that our subscription comes with free online training, and so I have already sent an email to the entire team letting them know of this opportunity, and hopefully people will learn to more fully utilize the software. The final bit of training that we're working to resolve, and I think I've reported on this previously, but we are trying to educate our designers so that they are having fewer revisions when they come into the city. We're working with the International Code Council Olympia Peninsula chapter to schedule an in-person training that could be coordinated with KBA and invite designers who are active in our community to come get training on current building codes, but also trying to educate the community on opportunities through the Washington WABO, I forget what that stands for, but Washington Building Officials Group, I think. And anyway, we want to make sure people are taking the training and are trying to educate themselves to have better submittals. Another item that we activated this year, which was in the 2025 budget, is that with the new reporting requirements for permit timelines, we have to track the start and the stop of the clock as we're reviewing permits, and so we had to turn on a feature in SmartGov. It cost us about $15,000 to get that configured and set up. It has been activated for most of our permits, but not all of the permits, and we still need to train our employees how to use that regularly and to use it properly. And as we gather data, we're going to have better information on how long things are taking, although the Camino to SmartGov process isn't captured in that. It is only captured once it is entered into SmartGov, so we have to keep tabs on how we're doing with our timelines. We also resolved a couple of issues just through this exercise. There are some weekly reports that are generated in SmartGov, and we realized that projects that had been marked deficient but which are still current applications just weren't in the report. They were getting cut off, and the staff who's generating the report didn't know it was missing, and the staff who was receiving the report was complaining about it, but they never actually connected to say, hey, can we change the system? And it was like 3 minutes of work in configuring the system. So that was an easy win. The other item that we resolved was that when we do third-party review, which we send a lot of our plans to consultants for plan review, they are adding conditions onto permits, but there was no step in our system to remind us to put those conditions on the face of the permit. And so that was a really easy thing to fix. We were already doing this for other permit types, but for single-family residences, it was a missing step that we flagged. And then there's the elephant in the room, which is what is our long-term software plan? And we can continue doing what we've been doing. We can make further investments in SmartGov and try to bring the online portal up and make it so that SmartGov becomes our document storage repository. This likely requires dedicated staff either in IT or the permit center who is solely managing the system. And so before we make an investment in SmartGov, I think there are other options that ought to be considered. And the Camino system, which has improved the quality of our submittals, also has a permitting platform. And it's currently part of the package that we're paying for. We just aren't using it. We could switch to Camino with very little cost, though we haven't really evaluated how it works and what the functionality is compared to SmartGov. And then there is also new software, and every time I go to a planning conference, the software companies are there and they're telling you about their features. And there are systems that are entirely geo-referenced so that everything is tied to parcel data. All your files are organized by parcels. You can upload zoning code information, so the software is actually helping you do your review for consistency with zoning code. And then AI is, I think we're going to see so much change in the next few years. I'm not sure that either of our current systems is going to look anything like what we're going to want in a couple of years. And so I think the thing to do right now is to continue doing what we're doing, but probably look at having a consultant do some evaluation where they meet with all of our staff, understand the pros and cons of systems, help us understand the cost of different alternatives, as well as the cost to implement those alternatives, and also the cost of maintaining an existing system while you bring on a new permit system, and figure out whether a change is worth the money and if we get benefits from it versus reinvesting in our existing system. And so that concludes the presentation, and hopefully the mayor's not going to strangle me for asking for more money.
We're on a Zoom challenge.
No.
So, Nick, I thank you for the presentation, and I'm glad that you guys took on a process improvement. I know that it takes away from processing time and other important duties, but its payoff is recognized in the end. I took a number of notes, so I'm going to try and probably just cherry pick a little bit. The issues that you're facing, I'll say to everybody, aren't unique to Port Orchard. I know the county faces the same issues, especially with re-inspections, and a lot of the other issues that you described are common amongst jurisdictions. But I'll go into building permit, building inspections. And I understand that having those inspections not ready to be acted on is a big deal. And you talked about, maybe there's a way we can disincentivize that. And then you mentioned that maybe it would be for our frequent flyers, but not for the mom and pops. And I'd push back a little bit on that, just that the mom and pops had to go through a paperless cycle to get to where they are, so they should be kind of in tune with what's needed. But I guess where I was headed was, why don't we try and write in some code that's at your discretion, director's discretion, as to whether an additional disincentivization fee or something like that.
I think it may be, he just wants to communicate that change before it makes it, so that you guys get phone calls and you're wondering, what the heck was he thinking?
Yeah.
Is that not
Well, there's two issues. There's one that is forcing people to use the portal, which we could make exceptions for people who are struggling to use the portal, but and that could require a code revision to allow me that discretion. But the other one is more of a policy where we just would not reschedule anybody who has failed for not being ready for a day or two, and basically make them wait, and then they can spend that time making sure that they are ready to pass on that next inspection.
You could do that administratively.
I believe we could do that administratively, yes.
So I liked that approach as well. I like the disincentivization for not being ready by saying you've got to wait. I don't know about 48 hours, but maybe 36 hours, so they can't try and capture it the next day, but they have to go 2 days out. Was this process just about building permits, or was it about all of your permit types?
This was just mapping the single-family
Okay.
new construction permits. And when we wrote the charter, we needed to be narrow, and it would have taken way longer than the 18 hours in a workshop that we spent over 3 days as a team. to look at all of the permit types. But I think there is an opportunity to potentially do this again and look at another permit type. But we felt like the single-family permit was a good, it kind of touched all of the areas of our system, but wasn't overly complex and would help us identify the most things in the shortest amount of time.
Okay,
I think many of these tools, though, are things we've recognized correlate to
Oh,
all
absolutely.
permit types.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
It was
But-
just trying to narrow the scope of what
Yeah,
we're looking
yeah.
at in process.
Totally get it, and SFRs are bread and butter, so it makes sense. The other thing that I'll mention, and I'll let others take a turn, is in terms of new software. I know that the county's looking at it. SmartGov certainly, fit in time, and it's clunky when compared to some other newer software applications that are out there right now. And so I guess my word of advice would be to coordinate with other jurisdictions, because as you know, we've got to mine each other's data for the buildable lands report and land capacity and all that. So I think it would be useful if maybe at LUTAC, we talked about some of this as well. But I think there are some other software applications that we've looked at that would be amazing, but to the tune of $400,000. So, and that caused you to step back a little bit, so.
And before we get to, this is gonna help create capacity if we can streamline the process. It isn't the silver bullet. We
Right.
recognize that we have some staffing needs, at least one, I think, that should be considering it in the mid-year review process. So there's just, we'd love to rely less on consultants and
Yeah.
keep waiting for the economy to slow down, and it has in many jurisdictions, but it certainly hasn't here. And so, I think it might be time to put some more resources into this so that we can touch our own stuff a little more often than consultants doing it. So, others have thoughts? John, I saw you.
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. Great presentation. I don't know that I'm as worried, and at some point I want to digest some more of your takeaways. How did you feel about the process? How did the team respond? Talk to me a little bit about mindset going into it versus what we came away with.
Well, I'll share that through this process, and when I went to put together the presentation for you all, I was on the state auditor's website looking for, kind of the background information on what we did. And I saw that they had, the auditor also offers a free team building workshop. And so we have taken the auditor up on that. The finance department is going to do the afternoon, and I'm going to do the morning in late October, where they're going to come out and facilitate some team building. And I think that it was apparent through this exercise that was probably needed. We have had a change in permit center management effective July 1st or June 28th, I think. So we have somebody new at the helm, and I think that because some of our reviewers are in Public Works and then the rest of the staff is entirely in my department, there isn't as good of communication between those two areas. And I would say if there was frustration or any heated discussion in the exercise, it was probably between Public Works staff that was in the room and the DCD staff. And so I think there is room for improvement there, but I think it was also a really professional exercise, and I don't think anybody left having not learned something new about an area of what we do, but not within their direct purview. So I think it kind of brought everybody together and gave everybody just a better understanding of roles.
You feel like most of them would all say time well spent?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
And I don't know as much, so we learned about this process at Action Days, actually. I did. The state auditor, they came and spoke about this, and so I know we had kind of talked about it. I'm super excited to hear you're going to take the next step. Will they come back? Can you do this more than once? Would you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can do, there's no limit to how often we can do this. I suggested that maybe when things are slower in the winter that we do this again and look at our land disturbing activity permits that Public Works handles, or possibly some other area of our operation, or maybe another department wants to utilize it. But it was time well spent and just really, really beneficial for me.
Awesome.
I learned a lot about the details of what my organization is doing that, I don't touch on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
So.
no, I'm super excited to hear that. I know it was something I was kind of beating the drum at last year's retreat. And so I'm still looking at your process map here. I used to live in that world. I'm now thankful that I don't have to live in that world every day, but it really does make a huge difference. And then when getting into some of the meat and potatoes, the one thing that kind of, and I think I heard you say something, and we may have skipped that, or didn't skip, but glossed over it. You said almost every SFR has 4 failed inspections.
Well, 4 out of 9 will fail, so.
Four will,
framing, yeah,
okay.
You know,
And that's in general. Is that just an education piece? Is what is causing that? Because I know while that's a frustration maybe on the builder side, it's got to be a frustration for staff too. Is it all just them not being ready, as you had said, and scheduling that ahead of time?
no,
Or?
I think, I'll share an anecdote from one of our staff members. We have a staff member who did work for a private developer at one time, and one of the stories that she told during this process was that one of the builders they worked with would basically apply for permits in different jurisdictions to sort of test them to see what they would catch, looking for the easy jurisdiction to basically be able to do things faster, cheaper, and cutting corners. And so I think that a lot of times some builders will call for an inspection hoping that the inspector just points out a few things rather than actually doing the work of making sure that they're ready and walking their entire site. The project manager should be doing a full site walk before every inspection, looking for deficiencies. And I think the tradespeople are saying we're done, and they call in the inspection and just let us find the problems rather than taking responsibility and being ready themselves.
Nice. Well, thank you, Director Bond, for being the first guinea pig for us and kind of blazing the trail. And I hope other directors will follow suit. Thank you.
Another element to your question there too that we've recognized is, we can't hire it's a workforce issue, okay? It's in the construction industry. It's, the engineers we're hiring are right out of college and we're having to train our own. And that's happening out in the building industry too. And so there's an element of everybody's needing to learn and improve their, and learn their skills. And so that, I think, contributes to it too. So, Councilmember Chang?
Well, Nick, thank you for the presentation. It was a lot more interesting than I was anticipating. I've been through this process, and it can be mind-numbingly just abstract. I do hope that you get to streamline the software workflow because it sounded like there are nightmares between Camino and SmartGov. I'd also urge you to keep the user's point of view in that whatever is the most user-friendly. And I was wondering, do you think the departments are feeling a little isolated being in different locations?
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I think it is challenging when you have reviewers at City Hall, reviewers at 600 Kitsap, and reviewers at 720 Prospect. And, we've looked at how we can arrange the desks and either, early on we talked about could we fit all of the people who do plan review into one space so that they can communicate, but that meant that their managers and the employees weren't in the same place. And so either you're having a management disconnect or you're having a communication disconnect between staffers. And I think people have gotten pretty good at working remotely. And so communicating via email and Teams and, we have when we do our review, we have a matrix for each project and each person goes in there and enters their comments. And I think we're pretty used to it by now, but certainly being able to just yell across the hall to somebody would improve things, but that's not an easy fix.
I'll wait my turn. I'll wait till a little bit later.
Either one of you.
Oh, I'm kind of curious. Yeah, this was a good presentation just to learn more. And in this permitting and with the single families, do you have like a checklist where you give a builder or something so when they say, okay, you get one inspection or if you fail it, then it will cost you a setback. And so they look at it on a piece of paper for the whole permitting process, and it's a checklist of going boom, 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 boom.
Well, we use a lot of checklists for different purposes. I don't know that I don't actually know where we communicate that you get 2 inspections. At each inspection, you get 2 chances to pass before you have to pay the fee. It's in our fee resolution, and I think all of the builders who are repeat customers know that. We don't have a lot of people building single-family homes who are not repeat customers. I mean, it's really infrequent. So I'm not sure that there's a communication issue to solve with the checklist, there. But Camino, the system where we create the application essentially is a checklist. You tell it, you answer questions, and it helps tell you what applications you need, and it basically functions as a checklist to help you get all of the forms completed that you need and get them submitted and be as complete as possible, versus if we didn't have Camino and we just used the SmartGov portal and people were submitting in SmartGov, there really isn't that navigator that helps you ensure that you're doing the right thing. It'll let you submit any amount of garbage, and we get a submittal that we then have to review and just kick out because it's a poor quality submittal. So, but yeah, we're using checklists all over in our department.
When it comes to like small business, I know you're just doing family, but just a question on small businesses. Are you doing Camino on that too?
We are, and I was going to report on this, but it isn't related to single-family housing. But we did learn that in Camino, the descriptions, when you go to select which type of application you wanted to fill out, you can enter more text than what we've entered, and we realized that we could be more communicative, and so we have updated those today. We looked at the county's example. The county had more information on their Camino platform than we did, and so if you click on certificate of occupancy, now it says this is when you need to use this permit, and it has much more detail than it did initially. And so I think that's going to help things. We've also asked Josh, our communications contractor, to help us develop a website for new businesses, because we don't actually have a page on our website for people who are starting a new business, and it's like, this is what you need to know before you sign a lease kind of information. So we've requested that Josh meet with our plan reviewers, the permit center, and start laying the groundwork for a website that we can hopefully point people to and get in front of some of these issues. We're also, our permit center manager, there is a software called Scribe where you can basically record tutorials where you're navigating through a website and showing people how to use that website. It's not very expensive, but it would allow us to upload videos onto our website that can be instructional and say, this is how you apply for this type of permit, and explain step by step what it is that you need to do. And so that's something we're looking at doing as well.
Thank you.
What Nick mentioned there too is a good segue. We've been leaning on Josh a lot. You're seeing a lot more communication. He's involved in this process, so don't be surprised. We have a biennial budget. I don't have a budget problem right now, but to continue to utilize Josh to this level, we're going to need to put some more resources into that bucket. Not a lot of money, but otherwise,
I think the council has been asking for that, so
so
yes.
I just making sure you're
Good.
aware of it. So go ahead, Charlie.
Well, just to augment what Nick had said, in addition, for small businesses that are not new but are going through a renovation or a remodel, the building official is working on a step-by-step guide on how to get those renovation permits most effectively and efficiently. And that'll be incorporated into the website.
Go ahead, Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, Nick. Thanks. I definitely know by sitting through some of those process, it's actually more entertaining being in them. Because you're dealing with your own work environment and workload, and you're seeing all that you can cut out of it. So it's definitely helpful. I actually eliminated about 2 months of work from duplicating through our department, so it's terrific. SmartGov, why can't they update that out in the field?
They don't have devices in the field for entering inspection results. I mean, they could try to do it on their phone, but I think typing in
Laptops and license?
No. No. We have, I don't recall how many licenses we have, but they would need mobile data and a device to enter it in the field, an iPad or something. But I think it is more efficient for them. They can enter their results faster from a desktop than I think they can from a laptop in the field, but we did have some conversations about whether that would make sense. The inspectors didn't seem to think it would make them faster. They thought they would do fewer inspections every day because they would be out in the field typing in inspection results rather than being able to do it at their desk at the end of the day.
Just from my own experience. So they're taking notes out in the field from all the inspections, and then they're bringing that out back to the.
Yeah, we do triplicate inspection correction forms, and so when you write the notice, you hand one copy to the builder, and then you keep a copy that you take back to the office, and then I think there's one goes in the file.
Couldn't you do it out? Couldn't you do it out in the field on your computer or your tablet, and a software program will kick out the results to the contractor.
Yeah, you
And
definitely could.
They would receive it electronically too, and it's smart government. It is live. I mean, once you input it, it is live. You could do that out in the field. You're not duplicating work that way as well. And I'd raise my hand to give your guys whatever they need, so that they have more out in the field.
Yeah, we had some conversations about that, but I can relay that, that there's support for doing that, and we'll, put it in our mid-year budget if we need to ask for resources to do that.
And do your inspectors do the plan reviews as well, or are they just straight inspectors?
One of our inspectors does a lot of plan review. One of them does really basic level plan review, and so, but yeah, and then some of it's done by consultants. It just depends on volume and availability. So when we don't have a lot of inspections in a day, they will be doing plan reviews. If we have a lot of inspection, we start sending things to the consultant.
I was just wondering if if you needed us to try to get you another plan reviewer so they can be out in the field more or whatnot, what would help you more?
Well, the mayor alluded to this, but I think what we're talking about asking for in the mid-year budget is a combination commercial residential inspector. And part of our issue is that when people have problems, they want to come and talk to somebody at the office who has technical expertise. The person with the most technical expertise is out in the field doing combination inspections for commercial and multifamily, the stuff our junior inspectors aren't trained to do. One of our inspectors is starting to do the multifamily. I think they're both starting to do multifamily, but the building official is having to do those inspections a lot of the time, and then they're not in the office to help people when they have questions on the phone or at the front desk. So if we can bring a combination inspector on who can take on those more challenging inspections, the building official can stay in the office doing more plan reviews and helping people with technical questions. So that's going to be the ask in the budget.
Exactly what we're talking about. Councilmember Rosepepe.
Thank you. Nick, that was a great deep dive. Really appreciate it. Going to ask a couple questions I don't think we touched on. One of them, well, you touched on it, was about inspection failures and the need, do we give a certain amount of time? Since I'm in that world right now, I can tell you I would love for people who aren't ready and fail an inspection to have a certain period of time, because all it does is hold up the people in the field that are ready. And that frustrates the heck out of me, having to wait 4 or 5 days to get an inspection scheduled. This is not inside of Port Orchard, where we've been doing our remodels lately. So, I also work in Pierce also, so don't start taking it there. Second thing is, I would go with the credit card, make it transparent in our fees. The mail is an issue. We've seen that before. That's my personal opinion. A lot of businesses right now are building that into their billing, and I would go that way. I'm really appreciative that you continued discussions with KBA. We may not always see eye to eye, but I think it's definitely, I appreciate you getting their input and see where they may have ways to streamline the system. You may have looked at this, but one of the things we looked at a place where I was formerly employed, we looked at calendar bottlenecks also. You were talking about in winter when things slow down, is there things that possibly could shift to free up time during the summer months when it's busier? I don't know. I'm just saying is sometimes we look at calendar and see if there's bottlenecks there. Part of the elephant in the room for me, and I don't know whether you've talked about or addressed it, and when we had our discussion talking about DCD, one of the things that we talked about was customer service interaction. There was a certain amount of frustration. Some of that may be because of the processes. Some of it may be people having a bad day on either side of the counter, but I don't know if that's something you're looking at to push down a little bit too. Thanks.
Yeah, just on the customer service side, those are conversations that we're having. They're separate from the lean process, but we are,
right.
We're sort of, I guess, reaffirming that it's our mission, and we have to ask probing questions of applicants to make sure that we're giving them the right information, and we can't just say, go look at something online. It has to be, we have to be as helpful as possible at the counter, and we're addressing that separately.
Appreciate you taking a look at that and continue to look at how we phrase things. Thank you, Nick.
Councilmember Trenary?
Last but not least, Jay, thanks for that last little bit
That's
of
what I was gonna
tidbit
say
there.
too, last part.
I appreciate you getting that ad in there. Nick, there's nothing we can tell you up here that you obviously haven't learned already, because you did a very thorough search and identified some process issues. The one thing that I found kind of concerning was that hadn't been a lot of software training in several years, and different industry, but holy smokes, that puts a tough burden on your staff to try to learn from people who aren't even in the same room as you anymore, best ways of doing things. So I'd really urge you to take a look at hiring the software companies and bringing them in. You mentioned this, bringing them in. It'll improve processes, it'll improve productivity, and most importantly, it'll improve your morale too, because your employees will know that you care about them enough to try to give them the tools they need to do the job better for you. So, but great job. Thanks for the presentation.
Scott, you got another bite at the apple?
Another couple, if that's okay. So in terms of time tracking, you had talked about this a little bit, and I've always felt it's important to track your time, and I work for the county, so I'll just say that, we track time on our permits, not necessarily the type 1s, but the type 2s and 3s, and then we look at how many hours are spent on those permit applications, and if there's a trend over 3 years, we'll raise a fee or we'll reduce the fee, and we've seen fees reduced for flats and similar. You had talked about a time tracker for each of your permit types. Was that automated? Is that what you were saying? Or will SmartGov know that you spent an hour working on that project and track it for you?
No, this is purely to comply with our reporting requirements. When we hit a population of 20,000, we're required to report on how we're doing in performance relative to the statutory deadlines for various permit types. And so we have turned that feature on, but it does require that the plan reviewer manually, mark something as deficient so that it stops the clock and triggers the notice to go out to the applicant.
Okay. You had talked earlier about pre-populating conditions, and I just think that it's better to have those pre-populated and walk back the ones that don't make sense rather than trying to do it in the reverse. That's my experience. A couple other things. When we talk about inspections, have you contemplated virtual inspections where somebody's putting in a water tank, for example, and they just need to show you with an iPad as they walk around all sides and the bubble test, I guess, on the lines, that kind of stuff?
We dabbled with this a little bit during the pandemic, and I don't think it is effective for most things. There may be a one-off inspection that could be virtual, but I think they're probably so few and far between that I don't know that it makes sense to invest in the technology that's needed to do that. I assume it's just a Teams call, but somebody's got to have a camera with a high enough resolution, and I think that sometimes somebody will call in a permit and you'll see all kinds of other work that's being done that isn't permitted, and
that's
so
true.
It's
yeah, it has its utility more for like the very discrete improvement you're trying to make, and if you are curious, Pierce County probably has the best example. The other thing that I'm wondering is are you looking at Lean Six Sigma and trying to get people like yellow belt status for process improvement, for continual process improvement?
We haven't talked about that yet. I mean,
Okay.
this is really our first step into this world, and I think we'll probably continue using the free auditor provided assistance for now, but it's something we could look at in the future. If we stay as busy as we've been for the last few years, I think it makes sense. I just don't know how much longer this current pace is going to continue.
Right. The value of having somebody trained as a yellow belt is when they see something that needs process improvement, they can lean into that right away. And they can either propose what we call a just do it, or they can propose an improvement programs like what you just went through. And so I think having people with an eye towards those kinds of improvements that have been trained towards that could be helpful. And then the next step is green belts, where your staff would actually own the process for doing that. And then, Mark, you had talked about training. I know that it can be difficult to bring in SmartGov for training when you hire somebody brand new. And so I think the goal is to try and have SmartGov train the trainer so that you got somebody who can onboard new staff when they come in and have to start using SmartGov. I presume you have somebody there who's more of an expert than others.
Yeah, we have a couple of experts, and that's what we've been doing, is they have been training our new hires. But I think touching on the software every, probably 2 years, and just having a facilitated training for a half a day is money well spent, because I think people, people forget what they learned in training. Maybe they talk to other staff about how to do things, and processes morph. So, it's certainly time to do a training, and then at what interval going forward, I think we need to talk about the value and see what our turnover is as well.
Okay, and then my last comment is, if you're going to bring in SmartGov to do some in-person training, maybe check with the other jurisdictions who use SmartGov at the same level that Port Orchard does. Might help share the costs.
Yeah, I just, through our conversation, do we have one person full-time taking the information from Camino and putting it into SmartGov? Would we free up an FTE there? I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's an API is what we need, right? To connect one to another. And I don't speak for the 7 of them, but I'm one to tell you, if you find out what that cost is, bring it back as quickly as possible. I know you're checking with the county, but I think a lot of times having something like that built is way more reasonable than sometimes we think. So that's my 2 cents on that.
We have 2 permit techs who are taking that on right now, and our permit center manager previously was doing that, but now she's moved into the new role, and so she's training the permit techs on how to do that, how to fill that role.
But so if we found a software that just connected one to the next, we'd be freeing up 2 FTEs? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, those FTEs do a lot of things.
They do other things too. Okay, that's what I was trying to get that clarity. Okay, I didn't know if that's what
If they did that all day, they could probably do 12 or 15 of them, but they're answering phones, and they do have technical knowledge in codes, not high-level commercial, codes, but they can answer technical code questions, and they get called for that sort of stuff all the time.
I think part of our analysis is too, I don't know that we want to do that right now, because we're trying to evaluate, is this the right piece of software? Should we be using this one? Or should be completely something else? And
So what I think I'm trying to say is, again, I don't speak for everybody, it's been my experience, something like that's probably in the $10,000 range. And that, to me, would be worth it today to help solve that while we buy ourselves some time to look at the bigger elephant in the room picture. My 2 cents.
All right, we ready to move on to the next item? Okay, Nick's going to talk about development activity.
All right, so every year or so, I've been giving you a presentation just on the development activity that you're seeing around the city. I wanted to walk you through, this is mainly private development, I don't have city projects on here. The presentation has gotten a little bit shorter recently, as we've seen some projects finished, and there's a couple new ones in here. So I'm just going to walk you through, starting with, let's see if I can get the slides to advance here. So Kitsap Bank, obviously, we've been talking about this for a long time. It's going hand in hand with the Community Event Center. Their building permit application is still pending. They have applied for their shoreline substantial development permit and received their shoreline permit. So they are part of a phasing plan that allows them to have shoreline permits through the year 2032. I am certainly hopeful that their project moves forward sooner than that. But they are currently working on some revisions to their plans, and they've made some decisions about teleworking, and so they're kind of truing up their staffing needs and making sure that the space that they have designed is exactly right for what they need going forward. So hopefully we'll have some announcements from Kitsap Bank here before the end of the year. 429 Bay Street, this is the project that you see going up just a few blocks from City Hall on the waterfront. Obviously this picture was taken a few weeks ago because they have topped out at the 4th story is now on there. This is our first mixed-use building that we have built since I've been here. There is a small mixed-use space on the waterfront side that is I think it's under 1,000 square feet, but it does have room for a small business, and looks right out over the waterfront. So it's exciting to see this one going. I think the shoreline permits were issued in 2019, and they were waiting for some environmental cleanup, and then also PSE had to move some power poles that were on their property and not in easements, and so that took a long time to resolve. The Forest Song project, this is up on Melcher. You heard some testimony on this a couple meetings ago. This is 192 apartment units, and this project's been in the works for a while, but they finally broke ground and are I would say, probably going to wrap up next fall. The Kitsap Transit Park and Ride.
Can you go back, because I went to that slide. It's important, some of the concerns that were raised were about sidewalk improvements, and this does have complete street on both sides of that project, so.
Yeah, we realized that this is an older graphic and didn't show the sidewalks coming around. I think those sidewalks are actually in the right-of-way, and so they're on a different plan set than this page, but you will have frontage improvements all the way around that block.
I think the other thing we asked about, was it going to be landscape? Because right now, when you drive by that wall, it's pretty dominant.
Yeah.
There's a landscape strip on the street, I believe. Certainly on Melcher, I think also on Sherman. So the Kitsap Transit Park and Ride, we are still probably looking at construction in 2026. They have secured all the property rights that are needed for construction. I think they own all but one of the properties, but have secured the use of the other property while they finish that transaction. The lift station design on that property is nearing completion, and there is both a development agreement proposed here as well as a latecomer agreement for the sewer lift station. Out at Stetson Heights, they are wrapping that project up. I mentioned they submitted 50-something permits here before the code changed on July 1st, so they have applied, I think, for all of the lots in both Stetson Heights and Stetson Ridge now. There were 412 total lots, and the final 108 lots in the Ridge are either underway or in permitting at this time, and I would expect maybe a year or so until this is totally wrapped up. Adjacent to Stetson Heights, we just took in a preliminary plat application for McCormick East. This is owned by the McCormick Land Company. This is Doug Skrobut's group, not associated with McCormick Communities, who is now developing McCormick Woods West and North. This is a 159-lot subdivision. It ties the roads and utilities into Stetson Heights, and they are, I believe we just issued comments on this, and we're going to be waiting for revisions on the layout, but another single-family project that has come into the city. In McCormick Woods, this is an older graphic and doesn't represent the current lot layout, but it does clearly identify the parcel letters for parcels F, H, J, K, L, and M. There are 6 phases remaining in McCormick Woods, all on the right side of the screen here. And this is, M is the big green parcel at the bottom of the page, and this is as you head out McCormick Woods Drive towards Glenwood Road. Eventually, St. Andrews will connect all the way around to the Eldon Trails area to the north along the east side of the property, and that road will form a complete loop through the neighborhood. And so several of these projects are in for review right now. They've designed a sewer lift station to serve this area that's in for review, and I would expect maybe the first of these phases will start moving forward next summer. And that's a total of 597 lots. McCormick West, the aerial photo on the right really shows the areas that have been platted. We've finished divisions 11 through 14 in terms of getting lots recorded, but there are several other divisions. 2 of them, 15 and 18, are being cleared right now, and site development is just getting started. And I believe there are 23 total divisions here. For some reason, they started at number 11 and ended at 23. So 12 total divisions, but they're 11 through 23 are the numbers. And eventually that there will be a loop road that goes all the way around McCormick West that has a grade-separated pedestrian pathway that's, I think, 1.5 miles or 2 miles in length. And so you'll have a nice pedestrian facility that loops through the neighborhood. And there are still, I think, about 1,100 homes remaining, or 1,100 lots remaining in there to be platted.
Nick, if I could interrupt for a minute.
Yeah.
If you have a chance, council, I suggest driving through there. They are building at a tremendously rapid rate. I went biked one day, 1 week, went the following week, and there was 2 houses that were already up. Obviously not complete, but I was absolutely amazed at how much they had built out that area. So it's well worth taking a look at if you think the building's slowing down here. Thank you.
Right, and I think we've talked quite a bit about McCormick Village, but again, there's 20,000 square feet of retail, and then about 400 housing units. It's a mix of single-family homes, accessory dwelling units, fourplexes, and eightplexes. And the central area of this is now in for review. The western portion will be coming in as a future submittal. These are some of the houses with ADUs that have been completed recently. Another announcement I wanted to share, there is another park going in, as well as the northwest entrance to McCormick Village Park. When you're heading up what used to be Campus Parkway, it's now McCormick Village Drive. This clearing where the red dot is on the screen here is the site of some new pickleball courts that are going in, and that area has been totally landscaped, and I think the pickleball courts are just about done. There is parallel on-street parking here for, I think, 30 or 40 cars. So when the splash pad is in use on those hot summer days, people can park on this road and walk into the park from the northwest, and hopefully that will prevent people from parking along Old Clifton Road. And so I believe they're going to be having a groundbreak or a ribbon cutting for the pickleball courts here in August, and that is a public entrance to the park there, the trail that comes in right near the pickleball courts. The pickleball courts for now will remain in HOA ownership. Over on the east side of town, we have a couple of projects, the Bridgeview Apartments, which is the northern area of clearing, and then the Riverstone Housing Kitsap project, which is 39 lots. Those are both still active. Bridgestone was just purchased by a new developer. The previous developer, they had 8 or 9 projects in the South Puget Sound, and they went bankrupt about a year ago. And so this has been picked up and is now moving forward again. And so I think you'll see those projects go forward soon. Also, here at the south end of Harold Drive, there's a little triangle that used to be forested, and now it is cleared with 24 apartments being constructed. The project that you see when you're driving on Lund, they are going to be punching Harold through so that you will have access to this neighborhood. The neighborhood will have access to Lund. It's going to be a right in, right out, and so we may see some cut-through traffic, but I would expect that this is mostly going to be used by the neighbors. And the pork chop that's installed here with signage that says no left turns is supposed to prevent left turn movements. And if that, we'll see how that works out. The police may have to do some enforcement out there. The Home Depot project is still moving forward. I'm still waiting for some exhibits from Home Depot to accompany their development agreement, which I'm trying to bring to the City Council this fall. As soon as I have those, we can get the development agreement processed, and then they still need to decide, are they going to try to build their store before we do our Bethel project, or do they want to wait until our Bethel project is done? Right now, Bethel is slated for construction in 2027, and so they have been a little wishy-washy on when they want to proceed with their project. The Salmonberry Apartments just broke ground. This is right next to the Home Depot site, and the road providing access to the Salmonberry Apartments also punches through to Home Depot and is part of our Bethel Commercial Connector project, which will tie the road that goes through Walmart and Safeway all the way through to Salmonberry, which creates some parallel circulation to Bethel and alleviates traffic on Bethel. This was 28 apartments, and it did receive a multifamily tax exemption certificate before that program was repealed. So they have a preliminary approval for the MFTE. The final approval doesn't come until they complete the project. Hidden Hills Apartment has been on our list for a while. This project is still alive. They did pick up the land disturbing activity permit in May, so they now have a year to call for their first inspection before the permits would expire. My understanding is there are several interested buyers in this project, but they're waiting to complete the transaction before they're going to do any sort of work out here. So it seems like the project is still probably going to go forward, but this one I'm a little less certain on. If the economy were to slow down, maybe that one doesn't proceed. We also received an application for the Blueberry Apartments Phase 2. Phase 1 was just to the south of the green parcel here at the corner of Blueberry and Bethel. The same builder has now purchased there was a house on a large piece of land, and they are coming in with another 102 apartments here. Although the discussion of multifamily tax exemptions, they are interested in potentially increasing their density and adding units to this if they can qualify for an incentive. So they also weren't aware that our zoning changed on July 1st, and that if they want to go taller, they can go taller than what was allowed here previously. So this may change a little bit before permits are issued. One of the last projects on my presentation, this is the Myers Sedgwick property, the Ramsey Apartments, where the Starbucks was recently built. This is another project that received a multifamily tax exemption preliminary approval. There are 99 units in a mixed-use building that are proposed. This is the elevation drawing of the building. This is one of the few projects we're seeing where parking is actually underneath the building, and there is commercial space in addition to the multifamily units. They're in, I think, a second or third review of their building permit application, and I think their architect has been somewhat slow to turn around the revisions, and hopefully we will get this one issued in the near future. So this is just a graph showing the distribution of units. We have way more single-family projects in the pipeline at this point in time. Our multifamily projects have mostly been built. There are still several out there, and then there's the 400 units of middle housing at McCormick Village that are on the list, and only a handful of commercial projects in the city at this time. And that's the end of that presentation.
Now, a couple of your committees have already seen this presentation, so it's not new information, but wanted to share it with the public and the full council.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our business item. We have one tonight, and it's adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Active Construction Inc. for the Sydney Non-Motorized Improvement Project. And Chris Hammer is filling in for Dennis Ryan this evening.
The city identified the need for the Sydney Road Non-Motorized Improvement Project to improve pedestrian safety and accessibility along the Sydney Road corridor through the construction of sidewalks, drainage upgrades, and pedestrian-related infrastructure. The project is funded through a $1,394,750 award from the Washington State Safe Routes to School program, accepted by the council back in October 12, 2021. With design complete, the city published an invitation to bid in the Kitsap Sun and Daily Journal of Commerce on June 30th and July 7th of this year, and released project documents via Washington Builder Exchange and the city's website. Bids were due by July 15th of this year at 2 p.m. A total of 8 bids were received and publicly opened. Lowest responsible qualified bidder was Active Construction Incorporated, with a total bid of $2,724,724, including applicable taxes. City staff reviewed all submitted bids and confirmed compliance with applicable public works contracting requirements. On July 15, 2025, Public Works staff recommended the MSRC mandatory bidder responsibility checklist, reviewed the checklist and verified the bid submitted by Active Construction Incorporated was the lowest responsible and qualified bid. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute the Public Works contract with Active Construction Incorporated for the Sydney Road Non-Motorized Improvement Project.
Councilmember Warden.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a Public Works contract with Active Construction for the Sydney Road Non-Motorized Improvement Project.
Second.
Councilmember Warden, a second by Councilmember Dieter. It's kind of an exciting moment. But last year we built those pedestrian improvements in front of the middle school, and now we're going to continue that project for where we stopped and take it all the way to Hovde Road and complete the similar improvements in front of the grade school. So very nice. So Councilmember Rosepepe?
So Mayor, if I got this right, we're still under budget on this. Moving forward, this looks really positive.
You got really good bids on this.
Right.
I'm really excited about that.
A high number of bids too.
Yes. So. Great. Other comments or questions? All right, you'll be voting on a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Active Construction for the Sydney Non-Motorized Improvement Project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The contract has been approved. And just to note, Active Construction is the same contractor that built Tremont for us, so a very good contractor. All right, we've got a few discussion items tonight that a couple of them trailed from last week's lengthy work study. The first is, in the spring, we had the strategic planning exercise and the desire by the council to have a downtown revitalization grant program. So I tasked Charlie with looking into the legalities of that. She found examples in other communities, that do this. I think what I gathered from you guys, looking at potential frontage improvements in buildings, I think decision points we still have to have. Is there a match? And then if if this is something you want to move forward with, then we've got to put some dollars in that mid-year review. And I have talked to the owners of the theater, and they are interested in utilizing this in particular for the removal of the marquee. And then they would need to, I think they've got weather protection, but I think anybody doing that type of improvement to their building, I think our code does require that you provide weather protection, so that would be part of this process. So, Charlie, you want to add on to what I missed?
I think that covers it. From a legal risk perspective, or not a legal risk, but a legal perspective, we would need to have a policy associated with the program. So if council provided us with parameters, we could put that in place. And from the finance department's perspective, that policy would need to be very specific about the financial aspects of that grant and clawback and all of those sorts of things. So with your direction, we can go ahead and move forward with preparing that grant program if you are comfortable with the concept.
I think the safest way to do something like this is a reimbursement, but that makes that property owner front those costs. But, and probably I would hope that they have some skin in the game, that we're not funding 100%. So, but I want to hear from you guys and what you guys want. So, Councilmember Rosa Pippen.
Well, first of all, we do have signage and policy on signage and that, so I'm not too worried about that. I think the main thing that I would like to see is I would like to see some skin in the game, whether it's 25% or dollar for dollar. I'm open to anything, but I think there has to be some skin in the game.
I'm hearing anywhere from 50 to 25% skin in the game.
Yep.
From you.
Yep.
Others have thoughts on that? Councilmember Shannon?
I'm a little slow on parts of this, and I had a question for Charlie about the prohibition on the gift of public funds. Mm-hmm. So that's saying that no local funds can be used except for the poor or infirm. And I'm paraphrasing very quickly, but so what local funds would we be using for this program?
Our general fund.
So it would come from the general fund?
Correct. So just like in the times of COVID, we were allowed to utilize funds for business assistance. And those programs in large part cannot solely utilize local funds for private benefit. But if we develop a policy that speaks to the benefits that this funding gives to the downtown revitalization as a whole, so the attractiveness to tourism that assists the city and all participants in the city's economy, we can build a program that navigates the gift of public funds doctrine successfully. So that the prohibition on gift of public funds isn't simply no, you cannot use money except for the poor and infirm. There needs to be a public nexus. There's sort of a second step to that analysis. If it's not one of those classes, then is there some other form of valid expenditure attached to this? And we do have case law in the state and examples in the state where it's used for a different type of public purpose, but still through a formalized grant program.
One further question too is, should we limit this to facade and frontage improvements? That I think it's to thread that needle. I think it needs to be somewhat of a beautification and tourism. So, right. Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you guys looking into this. This is the number one question I consistently get out there in the community. But the actual question is why aren't we doing anything about it? And so I explained to them that we don't have a hammer. And by being a code enforcer and things I do for a living, and it's easier to incentivize and try and get them on board. And if it is a portion, a percentage, a match, I'm down for the conversation with the building owners of what would it take them to move, as far as move forward on this. It's great for downtown. We need to do something to incentivize them to clean it up, to move forward. I think a good start would be to focus on refacing the frontage. From there, see how it goes. Maybe the backside too. You know, but we'll start there. It's a great step. It's a great step away from originally when we first talked about it and was like, we can't do this. But looking into it, there are ways, and there are, if there's means to do it, I'm definitely, I'd like to find a way to have the business owners have a conversation with them. Instead of just doing a policy right away that just gets kicked back. It'd be nice to have some sort, whoever has a relationship with them in the city to start the conversation. Obviously, we know who in the public has relationships with them, and if it means, you know, reaching out to Gary, reaching out to people that have relationships with them, it's a great start. So I appreciate you looking into this.
So, thank you, Eric. That was very well put. I too think that the frontage improvements, facade improvements are important. You stand downtown, you look left, you look right. That's what you see, and you want those buildings to look nice. And some of them may be beyond recovery, even with a, you know, heavy power spraying. I don't know, but something needs to be done there. So I'm all about facade. I would like the marquee to be addressed at some point, and then Main Street revitalization. I really am down for that. We're going to have to perhaps sit on that for a little bit until things get developed as they can be.
And the merchants are starting down that path. They've really got to mobilize themselves and start their nonprofit, and they've started that path. But it's a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
To make that happen.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Thank you very much for your work on this.
Councilmember Fenton?
Yeah, actually, that was going to be kind of the good of the order to ask about that, because I remember we had a work study, and we wanted to get together with the business owners down there, the landlords. And so, yes, I think to get this revitalization going, and then really to sit down with those guys, kind of sentiments of, you know, what you were saying, to have that talk, because we're not going to do it all on our own. So we need that partnership with the owners.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, if you're asking for my input, I think it's a great start to something that I think can be transformational for the city. You know, I just came from a meeting before this KETA board meeting over in Bremerton, and the end of it was they literally took us out of the room and finished the meeting down on 4th Street, which is now called Quincy Square. And so I think, being long-winded here, somebody had a vision more than 10 years ago, right? It was longer than that because before I moved to this state, and I got to be a part of that process over the last 12 years to see something like that come to fruition, that's going to be an absolute game changer for downtown Bremerton. They're bringing online another building now because of, well, it's not all because of that, because the shipyard needs to move outside of its gates too. It's going to bring 600 new people daily to their downtown. That kind of money being spent in their shops, and it just builds momentum. So I think this is a start. I think to put some better clarity on what I heard out of Councilmember Fenton, I'd like to do a town hall, a work study with the folks who might be out there doing that work to see what is their pinch point, what would that look like when I hear a match? Is that dollar for dollar? Is that in kind? Can they go out and if we have the dollars and they can find the manpower to do the work, do we count that? I think there are things that we need to work out about all this, but I think it first starts with a conversation with the people who would be partaking in those dollars, because what good is it for us to budget it if they can't find a way to use it?
We have to remember too, one person owns 60% of our downtown too, so we definitely need to, you know, reach out to Munzer and you know, because he's a big part of this, you know. Councilmember
Yeah,
Rosemary?
just a quick second bite at the apple. While we're focusing on downtown, I would also ask that we kind of keep an open mind to further down the road, that this program is also maybe applicable to other areas of Port Orchard. So when we kind of craft it, we kind of craft it with that in mind, so we're just not limiting and making people feel like they're excluded. So, because there's a lot of businesses here, and there may be other opportunities, just as we craft a policy on how this may interact. I agree we need to focus on downtown first. Everybody agrees with that. But we need to also keep an open mind for other businesses. Thank you.
Charlie's got some more work to do, so I need a little more a direction here on, and so that we can try to craft something that, I'm hearing frontage improvements for the focus of this.
That would be number one.
So I think where my comments, maybe I wasn't explicit when I said, I think it's just like we're building a road and we take public comment. I think we're at that point now, we need public comment to give her, I think, what you're needing.
Yeah.
That's
And homeowners.
what I'm feeling. I don't know if anybody
I
else
mean,
feels that way.
business owners, yes, we need property owners.
It's the property owners.
Yes,
isn't
the
it?
property
It's
So
the property
we
owners.
need to get communication going with them.
Okay.
I don't want to hold, oh, sorry, Fred, go ahead, please. I don't want to have Charlie do all this work and the property owners, the main one, just kick back right away and say, I'm not interested.
I'll start with that.
Correct.
So,
I've talked to a couple of building
Correct.
owners that, hey, yeah, I'm interested in one in particular, said, this could be, for their historic aspect, they need the marquee removed to get their historic status. And they've got weather protection on their building already. So I know one property owner that's likely interested, but we need,
All of them.
yeah, well, I don't know that, we probably don't have the resources to do every building downtown, but if we picked off one or two a year in a program, that's progress. So, Councilmember Chang?
I would just add that I think we have to be very careful that there should be a match, because I'm sure we've all heard from people who don't like the idea of subsidizing other property owners. So you can hear people saying, you're spending my general fund, which should go to this, this, and this, on someone else's building improvements because they, so I think there needs to be a match. We have to make sure that we, and
I would agree, but I think we also need to compel the notion that once you make these improvements, it helps the community at large, and in terms of budget revenue.
we should make sure it does, yes.
Yeah, part of the messaging.
All right, so we'll start with some engagement and then come back to these other issues.
Starting with that engagement with all of the property owners downtown.
Okay.
So you
All
get
right.
their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions.
Can we move on to the next item? Okay, the Community Event Center. We've got a couple of, I think, when we left the last meeting, unresolved issues related to bathrooms and then that unused space. So, I know that some of you, that was the first time you had seen been a council member when we'd given a presentation. The community center was largely designed pre and during COVID, and that design was completed, and other elements of the downtown revitalization needed to catch up to where the community center was. The road project, the Orchard Street Plaza, we had shoreline permits that our consultants were helping us with. So there were multiple other aspects of the downtown revitalization that needed to catch up to where we were. In the last few months, we had re-engaged Rice Fergus Miller because now we've got some other elements like completing the Orchard Street Plaza, the art piece that they touched on the other evening. And so there was, I definitely heard some pushback, and I want to have some more dialogue. So Brandy, if you could bring back, okay, we can start with this one. And John in particular raised some concern about where's it at in this?
Is that the bottom floor or the first floor?
I think you've got the wrong floor, Brandy.
Well, the
No, this is second
first floor is
You've
downstairs.
got the first floor.
Yeah, there's two pages. So they're both here.
Okay.
You just need to tell her which one you want.
Yeah, we want
upstairs?
Yeah, and I put it on the dais here for you
Yeah.
guys. There we go. So that top left corner, when the building was designed, and I think I spoke to this, was intended to be a co-working space. And I believe I've spoken about that business model has changed. And so John raised some concerns. He didn't want to see unprogrammed space in there. I can respect that. The idea was thrown out to move the kitchen over to that space. It would be extremely expensive to do that. That stairwell, and there's an elevator that would need to be moved. And it would also impact the spaces down below for the library. So that would be a very expensive proposition. We would gain some more capacity to the space, but what was shared with me also, that by adding the occupancy load, we also add to the restroom requirements, and we would need an additional restroom in the building, which would then need to come out of some other space within the building. So if the concern is about not having unprogrammed space, we can easily turn it into another meeting room until there's a better, till we find a different or better use for it, and maybe that's the best use for it. I just knew that in this, I didn't want to spend any further dollars or build out dollars towards something that we knew wasn't going to be the right fit. So,
I just want to get clarification that when we were talking about that space, that we were talking about moving all of the kitchen facilities over into that space and then opening up that, what's currently programmed as kitchen, as more banquet space.
Correct.
Right.
And that would require moving the stairwell now separates you.
Yes, that was right.
So extremely expensive redesign. Yes. Councilor Rosebaby first.
Yeah, a couple of things on this. One, in a previous life, I was a facilities designer for Boeing, which was not a banquet space or a community center, but we did always leave a space for potential of later use. I think that we've already seen that when we were making this a space, we had allocated for it. Now, since that time, that's changed. So I think having a space that would be, could be for future growth and making a meeting space, I think is a good way to go right now. Otherwise, besides the additional dollars in redesign, it'd be the additional time in building. And this project has already been, not delayed, but interrupted.
It hasn't really.
Not really delayed.
We've always been targeting.
I understand, but I mean, COVID was kind of a blip. But
Yeah.
right now, having a space for future growth and not knowing what that is not a bad thing, because we design spaces that way, and it's in buildings, so you have growth capacity. So I'm in favor. Also, the other point I wanted to make was we're not going to really gain that much seating in the banquet area, and we're not being in competition with anybody else. We're not in competition with the convention center. We're not even, actually, we kind of slot ourselves in pretty well within the community between Whiskey Gulch and other areas. Banquet room, we're kind of like in the nice middle area that people would use it for banquets or activities. So I'm in favor of keeping this design right now. I could understand John's frustration a little bit, not having a designated use right now. But I'm saying is we might be very well surprised by the time we go that we have a designated use for that, just as times change. So that would be mine, to keep it as the design as it is. Thank you.
Councilor Finn, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, when I look at this, I look at the stairway staying put. We don't move the stairway. Oh, the stairway's right here. Oh,
You'd have to travel from the kitchen if you moved way over there, all the way down the hallway.
okay, so here's the
Really
stairway.
inefficient, is what the
So
designers are saying.
can't we leave that stairway there, and then you have the, what is that, it's the large meeting room, and then another, open space? No, I'm saying put that way over here. The kitchen is straight at the very end, where the large meeting room is and that open space. And then you open all this up for more tables, if you see what I'm saying. So this is
what-
tables, and that's the kitchen. You don't move the stairway because there's that wall still there. And then I also think that for that, it says a storage room that's in the large meeting room, that turns into a toilet, and we divide, so they each get 2 or 3 toilets and 2 toilets. It's divided in half. I'm very much also concerned, and I didn't bring it up that night, but I really appreciate that you brought up, we shouldn't have that Robert Sowers, no.
We'll get to the restrooms.
Oh,
in
is that
the
coming
next-
too?
yeah,
Okay,
that's
that
coming
should
too. So-
be separate.
So
but-
Councilmember Fenton,
Yes.
we employed a hospitality design consultant in this design, and what you think is excess storage space is not. All of those tables and chairs have to be stored someplace.
Yeah, right in here.
When the event. So if we start bisecting that, then we have no place to store our tables and chairs.
Isn't that the room that goes
That
tables
is
and
correct,
chairs?
and
I
it-
didn't say anything about that one.
Okay.
What storage were you referring to?
The one that's off of the large lounge, the large meeting room, where it says large meeting room.
Right-hand corner.
Yeah, we turned
to the
that into
toilets.
the kitchen, so we have more seating area, because this only holds like 110 to 150 people.
160 seating, using the deck, it was over 200. So,
thought-
so we're, to
Hear that.
move the kitchen around, we're talking $100,000 and 2 months of time, is what I was told, and that would come out of our general fund. The PFD is not gonna fund our redesign. We've used all of our dollars, our design dollars with those. So I'd like to hear from others.
I've got a concern on just Councilmember Fenton's idea here. We've got an 815 square foot staging kitchen, trying to stuff it into a 487 foot large meeting room?
Well, what does that kitchen actually entail?
It's
Is it a,
it was a catering kitchen that was designed by a hospitality consultant. This is what they do for a living.
is there like a stove?
There's no cooking going on. It is prep. And so they bring things into warmers and then prep stations to serve. So a caterer brings their food here that's been cooked. It's in holding stations, it's counter space, it's refrigerators, and they assemble the meals for the event in this space.
It's not a commercial kitchen, it's a
It's
prep
not,
kitchen.
it is a prep kitchen. That is correct.
Yeah,
It's just a
And this
plate-
is the
it's a
size
plate
of the
food.
space
Yeah.
that was recommended by the consultant
yeah, and
to be successful.
yeah, that's their expertise. I trust that.
Councilman, go ahead. We can either one.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he was done, so I didn't want to step on each other. Yeah, I think, especially hearing at $100,000, right? I know I didn't have to look at that budget, but I mean, we're not even talking 1% of the budget of this project, right? We're not even talking 0.5% of the budget of this project. I'd like to get it right. That's my sentiments on it. I'm one of 7, as I've said multiple times tonight. I think some of the wanting to move that staging kitchen is wanting to expand that space. Feedback I've heard is we were promised something bigger, right? In fact, there was just talk this morning at our Rotary meeting about the article that was mentioned in the paper about our crab feed possibly moving here, and there's a 0% chance that would happen, right?
It's bigger than.
Correct. We're well up over 350 and may outgrow the Bremerton Conference Center real soon and have to take it up to the casino. But again, we're not trying to build this for everybody, but I am just trying to see where we can flex that, and that was the impetus. I'm not saying it has to. The feedback I'm getting is I was told this was going to be bigger and have a larger capacity. I'm just trying to help assuage that.
And that corner too, in the top right corner, has windows and has the best
Yeah,
views.
it's not
and-
ideal for a kitchen, but
I mean, it is an ideal place for something special. because of the views and the windows. It's the best views in the entire building. So, Councilmember Warden, did you have thoughts?
No,
or-
not on this aspect.
Okay, Councilmember Diener?
I just want to say that I've been to several events where there's been auctions and those kinds of things, and one recently, or not too recently, but not too long ago, at McCormick's, had it been raining outside, we would have been in a hard way. So I look at that space as having maybe some other options until it's programmed specifically, but like, you could have that be your auction room, for example, or some other.
We've got patio space, the plaza, the deck out front is being programmed to put anchor tents onto it. So, we aren't limited to what we can do inside here. The plaza and the outside space too is being designed to accommodate, to be part of this facility. So, I would discourage you time is also of the essence. We're pedaling hard to make sure that we don't. I think it would be very detrimental to us not to go to construction in 2027. And that backward would cost us time.
And so the 100K that's a complete redesign, moving the
That's
kitchen over, keeping the stairs where they are?
No, the stairs have to move. And it impacts the library. We'd have to talk to the library, and then it would impact their design downstairs. Their floor
Where would
plans.
the stairs move? Do we know?
That's a good question.
Why do they have to move?
Because the kitchen would be on the other side.
You have to step over the kitchen.
They're in the way of the kitchen.
Yeah, step over the stairway.
They're in the way. You'd have to travel,
I know,
which would
it's in
be,
here.
the designers told me, very inefficient to travel all the way down the hallway.
I don't want
Does where the kitchen is now, up against the banquet, is that open space? Like, is that counter space if you want it, or is it?
It's a door to get there. You can see it there at the.
No, like, is it a counter where I can serve you over the counter? Or like-
No, it is not.
It's not, okay.
It is not. It's a door from the kitchen.
I see,
traveling
I
into
see
the
the solid
banquet
wall,
space.
okay.
Okay, Councilmember Chang, do you have?
I sympathize with what Councilmember Morrissey is saying, because I think it would be nice if we got it the way we liked it. The only thing that I will make one last plug for is like looking at the two tables, or the center section, and you're looking out at the deck. I am sad that there are only single doors going to the deck, where the only double doors in that lobby area. Is it possible to add more double doors, at least from the eating area, to sort of bring in the outside deck area if you want people to eat out there? I talked about, people walking into, well, I don't know if that's gonna happen. But it does seem ironic that you have a lot of glass and just very small openings out on the deck. So if they could add another door or two.
Or even, you're saying we're spilling out, right? How do
Yeah.
I feel connected to what's going on inside if it's not more open?
I would prefer like
That's a good
folding
point.
glass
I didn't even
doors,
catch
but
that.
if that's too
Councilman
expensive,
Chang.
maybe just another couple of double doors.
Mr. Mayor.
That would be nice. Sliding glass doors.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair question. I haven't asked that question.
Maybe, Mayor, while you're at it, ask about sliding glass doors, commercial sliding doors instead of swinging doors.
So,
Go ahead.
So, if you just do the basic math on it, with the tables that are there, it's like 112 tables. If we basically think that our bread and butter is gonna be like some smaller weddings in there, you'd have to remove 6 of those tables anyhow, just to put a dance floor on there for its actual reception, based off the size of it. I mean, so you'd actually have significantly less than that, because no one's having a wedding reception there without even
Well,
a
remember
dance
though,
floor.
to this end of it, there's a large sliding door, and that open space is part of that. All of this,
To the east of the.
yeah,
other
all of that is
Behind it.
right there, right there, that is a gigantic opening. I'm not, we're gonna put the dance floor
Yeah. Oh, I
and
see what you're-
wherever.
I see what you're
We could put that tables can be put all the way out into that space if you wanted the dance floor on the other side but yeah, this is programmable all the way to the meeting room with an opening, a large opening.
I mean, the size of the building is the size of the building. We're not changing the size of the building.
Yeah.
No.
It's, yeah.
And adding, like I said, we have to sacrifice something else to add additional restrooms if we, because the use, changing it from whatever this use is, business occupancy, which is the top left, what it was, to banquet space, changes the number of restrooms we have to have.
So just so I'm clear, $100,000 contemplates all of that we've been talking about, right?
I believe so, yes. It's a spitball.
Right,
okay?
right. I just
And
wanted
we
to-
haven't, I asked for a quick number from this. It's a spitball, and we haven't even contemplated if we move the stairwells and the elevator, the impacts to the library and what
Right.
causes for a
That's,
redesign of it.
that's my point, is it's no longer $100,000.
It probably is a low number.
Far as
And
we know.
time.
And time. And so I'll just, while I've got the floor, I'll just say that I don't want to do anything that will cause this to delay.
Okay, so that said, and I'll get feedback from all of you, Jay spoke to leaving this unprogrammed. Would you prefer that unprogrammed, or would you prefer to see it programmed? Because it would be relatively easy to make it a very nice meeting room, a very nice large meeting room. That
I
falls
guess-
within the occupancy.
What then would change that to mean the change in the bathrooms? Because if we're going to add people into a meeting room there versus it being all one-room meeting, it's the same number of bodies. I don't understand the math for toilets.
It's building, I'm not the building, it's building code.
Yeah, I think it's occupancy classifications, and so the different space has a different
IBC, International Building.
occupancy number of people.
So this is a meeting room has.
So this whole building won't be permitted the same? We've
Each-
condominiumized it.
Not all one use, so that
Yeah,
there's a
each
B
one of these-
occupancy in the
Yeah.
suite that's downstairs. It's assembly for the meeting space upstairs. So it changes your occupancy depending on what the use of each space is, and you have to separate uses per the building codes. But it's more technical than I'm comfortable getting too far into.
It's not condominiumized, but meeting rooms have different
Okay.
occupancy requirements.
So let's say we leave it unprogrammed. Whatever we're about to go program's now not going to meet the right number of bathrooms. So why wouldn't I want to program it now to have the most amount of bathrooms I should ever need?
As long as we stay within that use table, there's a lot of things we could do with that space. It's just not banquet and assembly space. It's different,
Okay.
it's International Building Code.
So I'm going to need those nuances before I can make a decision.
Or we could program it as a meeting space. I don't know, I didn't want to pick a use for it. I think it requires some engagement with the community, and I felt that at this moment in time, leaving it unprogrammed was the most prudent thing. Or we can put carpet, some lights in it, and a conference table in it, and utilize it if we think that's a better use. That was my.
I just want to go back to something you said.
I really think it's going to be a real black eye in the paper that we want to move forward because we're instead of getting it right, than worrying about being 2 months. And you're telling me 2 months when we got 18 months before we even get to that date, and we can't find a way to make up 2 months in that time period. That's hard for me to believe. So that's just my 2 cents.
Scott,
You're going to get $1 soon.
okay, go ahead, Councilman Fenn.
Oh, I was also wondering, we can get some space, because, if you have a party up there, or, a banquet room, you want open bars. Everybody always has an open bar. And so I was thinking, why are we having telephone booths? If you need to make a phone call, you go out the hallway. I've never seen a telephone booth to go make a phone call. And if we can get that space back, you could put, that could be like 2 open bars right there.
The banquet facilities I've been to, the bar is mobile. It'll be somewhere within the banquet event, not probably out in the hallway.
Well, no, that's not out in the hallway.
Those phone booths in facilities I've been are highly utilized and highly desired, because somebody's got a phone call they want to make, or they're going to do a Zoom meeting, and there's business purpose to this facility too during the day, not just banquet facility.
So you talked about engaging the public. I think before we engage the public, we need to have a better understanding of what this is going to cost.
I was referring to this one space, because I started talking with Sam and others, what is it we need in our downtown? And I haven't gotten good answers. We bannered some ideas around. To be honest, I don't think we have time for a public process and engaging the community to figure this space out. We will, if we don't get to construction on time, a lot of people are skeptical that this is real and that we're gonna build this, and we are in 2027. And if that timeline slips, there's I know Nick's got some funding sources that we would potentially lose. You spoke to that, to me anyway, so do you want to share?
Yeah, so the waterfront plaza, the overwater structure that's waterward of the building, we have an RCO grant for, and we have a schedule for that. And I've been told that if we don't start construction, we will not get an extension on that grant agreement. So that's a piece where we would lose $500,000, which is a big sum of money. It's only covering probably 20 or 30% of the cost of the waterfront plaza, but it's a good chunk of money.
Mr. Mayor, just offer one comment to edit what you just said. We don't have time for additional public outreach. There was extensive public outreach under the previous city
absolutely.
council.
I mean,
Yeah. I just didn't want there to be an implication that there
This
hasn't
design
been
was
public
presented-
outreach, because there was.
Yeah, to the city council numerous times, not this body, but, so this design was completed a few years back. It's just the first time that this body has seen it in a public setting.
What took so long?
Well, we re-engaged the architects. So Councilmember Rosapip?
Yeah, I think we're getting hung up about one space that has evolved from one thing to another thing. I mean, if you put a label on it right now and say meeting room, does that meet everybody's approval? I'm saying have some flexibility with it. If we're not going to move the kitchen, which I'm totally against for reasons, I think that not only delay, but I think that the fact is it's gone through reviews, it's gone through architectures, it's gone through a process. We all have personal opinions, quite frankly, but we are where we're at right now, and if we want to keep delaying it, then my question is, why don't we just wait till after November, see what new council members there are, and start back again? I'm sorry, but we need to move forward, and we need to make some decisions. If you can live with it, then live with it. If you can't, then it's time to make a decision and move forward. And as I'm sorry that it hasn't come back before, but I'll say this, and I know it will tick people off. That design has been out there for over several years, and if you haven't looked at it, then I'm going to say shame on you.
I will tell you, this design has not been approved by City Council.
Correct.
I did go back through the meeting minutes and look through, so just
Correct.
want to make that clarity from last week as well.
Yeah. None of our designs you guys approve contracts, and whether it be road projects, we bring back the consultant's drawings, we share them with the city council. There have been tweaks to this throughout the design. Councilmember Chang's shaking his head. We've all been.
No, I'm nodding my head.
Council.
I'm nodding my head, not shaking my head.
Yeah, the council members at that time had oversight to this process from the very beginning, from the outside shell to the location, and so this wasn't done in a vacuum. So, Councilmember Diener.
I just wanted to say, and you've already heard it enough, but I wanted to lead into something else. We've talked about the space available for banquet here. We never build ourselves as being hyper-competitive with larger spaces out there. And so if we don't reprogram that space, or if we keep it as a meeting room, I don't think it's going to be a black eye. I think the whole building in total is going to be great. And we never promised anybody, at least that I recall, that this would have X amount of capacity for banquet rooms.
I think the call out we got this morning was that the mayor made that comment in the paper, that they had something to the size of the crab feed, right? And I'm not putting the blame on the mayor here. What I am saying is that is what the public expects. That is what has been communicated to them. And this is not a representative from what the conversations I've had with folks in what they're looking for. So I'm just trying to be a good steward of what I'm.
Right. And I will own what I've said publicly numerous times. I would hope to have events like the crab feed. I'm not involved in that road, I'm not a member.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything. I'm
I
just,
don't know.
the
that
perception of how that was
you guys
taken.
are at this time, 300. Back 7 years ago, I don't know if it was that large, and you're planning on growing it bigger. We're
Hey,
not,
Mayor?
this event space isn't gonna be for everybody, and it was purposely never intended to compete with the conference center and the capacity that it has.
Just add that for some people, it'll never be big enough.
Correct.
And this is gonna be challenging enough to afford this. It's it's gonna be the catalyst for what happens in our downtown, whether the Orchard Street Plaza, the Kitsap Bank headquarters, and this project. And we can't lose sight of that.
Hey,
Councilmember
Mayor,
Chang? Yeah.
I was just going to remind you, the overwater structure that we designed, we laid that out with a large tent on it as well.
Correct.
So there is additional capacity on the overwater structure beyond what can be accommodated on the balcony and in the meeting room. So
And the
maybe-
plaza in front of it.
Maybe it's not one space that can hold that event, but it is multiple spaces that have a larger capacity than what this one room has.
That is correct, and I alluded to that earlier. It's the plaza ties into it, the deck space plays into it.
The tents, that was good reminder.
Yeah, it spills right into it. Councilmember Chang?
I just wanted to add that I would actually support moving forward so we keep it on schedule. But if there is some leeway to tweak it, like maybe the room in the left could be for the vegetarians that have a different meal, or something like that. If we can keep along with the current schedule, because I think that's the most important thing is no delays.
Okay, so I'm hearing a couple say let's charge forward with that. I do think it's a good idea to ask the question about double doors.
Charge forward with what? Just so we're
I've heard two of you saying, don't move the kitchen, move forward with the design as we have it. Is that what I heard from the first
I'm
two of
leaning
you?
that way, but I'm also not confident in the number that we heard about what it would take to redesign, because
I think it's a starting point, yes, and it was a spitball number that they gave me very quickly.
That's just for our space, not for the library space.
It does affect the library also.
that's part of the
Yeah.
cost, though.
Yeah, it would be, and the library isn't asking to change this. So, Councilmember Rosapipi, I think and John, I think I'm confident you're leaning towards you'd like to
I'd
pause
like to
and-
redesign.
You'd like to revisit, okay? And Councilmember Terneri, where are you leaning on this?
Well, I think with the caveat that we check into the double doors that Councilmember Chang talked about in the first, earlier in this discussion, I'm comfortable with moving forward with the way it's sitting, the way it's set up.
It says future tenant. Are we renting that space?
The ground, you're looking at the ground floor?
Well, no, I'm still upstairs.
No, it's saying it all.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure what,
Yeah.
we left it blank. So it could be a tenant, it could be us. It's an unknown at this point. I left it unprogrammed when we moved away from the co-working space.
So basically.
It could be a tenant.
Right, because there's some office space. But basically, this is not a revenue, we're not going to really make money off of this community center.
I don't know of any community center that makes money. It's
Right.
half of this building is a public library, and we provide space to the library.
'Cause
currently.
the library's underneath, yeah, I get that. No, I kind of would like, I just saw this whole plans on last week. So I still would like to work with it.
So, yeah, 66% of this is programmed to be funded by the Public Facilities District. The library's contributing $5 million, and we're covering whatever difference that is.
Mayor?
The goal would be the operational costs are covered by events and leasing out the facility.
I just had a quick question which might inform on people's choices, but Nick, that future tenant space, if we set that up as assembly space, could you use it also as banquet space?
That's a question for the building official. I'm not positive. I don't know where they draw the lines in those definitions of assembly versus a B occupancy or
Yeah.
some other occupancy.
Or the kids' room, kids' table, sit at
At
the
the
kids'
kids' table.
table.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, if you're asking if I'm okay with basically the kitchens that we're asking.
Yeah.
We're asking about the left side of the facility. Is
Yeah,
that our
we're gonna talk about
conversation?
bathrooms next.
Correct. I want to get as much floor space as possible for a banquet. So to me, even like what I brought up earlier, I think you'd still lose a lot of floor space. So I'd like to see it redesigned. I want to see as much floor space for banquets as possible. We don't have many banquet areas, quality ones, especially ones on the water. I think this would be extremely desirable location, and it would fill up. But it's not going to fill up if it's too small. I'd like to see it as big as possible, the floor space.
I'm only hearing two of you really desiring to continue down the path of a redesign. So,
How voting works, yeah.
okay, so I hope you respect what I'm hearing is the will of your peers. So, and I will ask the questions about some sliding doors and double doors so we can
You'd have to.
better activate the deck space. I think that was a good question you raised, Fred. So Brandy, if you could, we've got a couple of, and you guys have them on the dais here. Rice Fergus provided me some examples. It would be extreme, so there was the dialogue around the water closets that are individual booths, and then the hand washing area. And Brandy, if you could bring up that hand washing area. This is a project that an example of a project Rice Fergus Miller. I emailed it to you earlier today.
So this is the email version here.
No, there's another email I sent you.
Oh, that was Nick sent me that one.
No, I sent you yes. Came from me before that one.
So we can start here. How much is this redesign going to cost?
I hope nothing because.
I don't care.
So
I don't either.
I've got a solution, okay, that doesn't cost any money, okay? And the library is also supportive of, because I've talked to the library about it. So the easiest solution, if you guys aren't comfortable with, these are floor to ceiling rooms, and then the common area out there is where you wash your hands. So each one of those is a confined space with a door that goes floor to ceiling. And then I was asked earlier, where's the changing station, all that. There's a larger restroom off to the left over there. And then Brandy, if you could show the other image in that email I sent you was an example of a project that Rice Fergus Miller did and what that looks like out in that common space. And you guys have a copy of that at the dais. I just wanted to share it for the public. So if you're not comfortable with that, and these are intended, I mean, this is what, when you go into Starbucks, it's a unisex stall. The airport, I've seen examples of it at the airport, and I think this is Vibe Co-works over in Paulsbo, I think is what this project is. It's a project that Rice Fergus did, so. So I'd like to hear, so if you're not comfortable, I know some of you aren't, but so I'd like to hear from all of you whether or not you're comfortable with this current configuration. And then the solution that Rice Fergus offered was, that doesn't cost us any money, and the library would be fine with this, is designating one floor male, one floor female, and signing it that way. If we redesign this, we will have to sack on both floors, and the library wouldn't be comfortable with it. There isn't enough room to do a male and female restroom in the space that's been allotted to this. We would need to move things around and sacrifice other things. And the library is already sacrificing space from what they have currently. It's just gonna be configured better, and they're comfortable with what they have. They wouldn't be comfortable redesigning their space and chopping it up to create two separate restrooms. But they would be comfortable if you're not comfortable with what has been designed to go a male and a female stacked. And what you see at the Admiral Theater, when you reach there, there is an elevator, so it would be ADA compliant. So, Eric?
Yeah, I think a lot of the locations that you mentioned so far are private and they're not a community center. paid for by the public. I think it's kind of unfortunate that it was designed this way. I think it wasn't thought out very well. It wasn't presented this way. I looked at previous things, and it wasn't presented that way. I watched your KBAT video when you sat there and they presented it as well, and they didn't cover this either.
Councilmember Warden, I know for a fact it was because I distinctly remember Councilmember Clausen questioning this and discussing it with the
I'm saying
architectural team.
the KBAT, when it was presented, is it CAT TV, is that what it is?
BCAT?
BCAT, yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it
I
wasn't-
was only talking about the project at a high level. I mean, I didn't,
But they toured the facility, I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean, I watched the video just to make sure that I'm not bringing up something new, right? I want to be fair and do my research on it.
Okay.
But I think it's really, we're going to build a really nice, beautiful facility, and it's just going to receive all kinds of backlash, all kinds of black eye. And there's no shot that my mom's entering a bathroom and walking in there with a 22-year-old male, or my father's going in there with a 16-year-old girl. They're just not entering that, and they're very, very common average people. That's just not happening. And to say that, well, these aren't designed and not everyone's flavor, we had the opportunity to do something that is not controversial. It's not even debatable by having bathrooms like that. You mentioned the theater. I spoke to someone the other day, and he said he went to, that's telling Morrissey, he said that he went to a play in Seattle, and he had to go to the bathroom extremely bad. And we all know this person. This person's an amazing person. And he said that he couldn't even use the restroom because there was a little girl that was going in front of him. And so he had to turn around and go back to his wife and said, I can't go in there. I just think that we're going to build something really, really nice, and we're just going to draw all kinds of negative attention to it, make it even more challenging to rent. I think having an upstairs and downstairs is extremely inconvenient. You have someone who's upstairs has to use an elevator to go downstairs just to use the restroom, male or female. I'm down for a little bit of a delay to pay whatever the difference is to change the bathrooms to avoid the public not being very satisfied with what we're going to put out there for them. So,
We're going to go around in a round circle, Mike. Okay,
Go ahead.
well, and I am too, and I'm more concerned about little kids going in here for a unisex, and where's the parents? One of their parents are in the library doing something or whatever, and you have little kids going in there with grown-ups, and we know there's a lot of offenders in this area that can use that space, so that's unacceptable too to me. And I think this could be an okay to one. We can easily, that's why I said that little teeny storage space can turn, so I'm talking upstairs first, can turn into a bathroom. You just build a wall and then a door. So you got a bathroom on this side and you got a bathroom on this side, male and a woman's and a man's, and you do the exact same thing downstairs.
So, Councilmember Fenton, it's the room you keep referring to that's the audit, that particular meeting room is designed as a boardroom, and it has high-tech audiovisual equipment, and that's the closet for that high-tech equipment. So what Rice Ferguson Millers, it's not if it's not acceptable to do stacked male and female, we need to engage with our partners at the library, and we will have to sacrifice things on the bottom and top floor because Rice Ferguson Miller is telling me there isn't enough. The number of toilets we have is how many we have to have in the building, and to get to that many toilets, we've got to and separate men's and women's on both floors. It will take more space, and we will have to sacrifice things within the building, potentially move the restrooms somewhere else. I don't know.
So you can't have two restrooms and two restrooms two for a woman and then two for a male? You can't do that upstairs?
and then you-
And then do it downstairs?
you've got also the sinks and everything that goes with that.
Right,
I mean,
so-
we could sign what we have right here today, 2 of them men, 2 of them women, and we could do that with signage if you're just wanting us to put, I don't know, where's the picture?
Well, if they're going in here, there's a little kid coming all the way in here with grown-ups.
It's only the hand washing area. These are individual.
But there's walls all the way around it.
It's open here and all the way across the front, just like this. You can, instead of this screening, remember the ropes in the picture? That same effect is here. You can see this area, this sink area from outside. This is not a wall, this is not a solid wall along these sinks. You can see into this whole area standing in the lobby.
Is this the one downstairs? So you got one,
They're
2,
both the
3, 4,
same.
5, 6?
They're both the
You got
same.
6 stalls?
I think so. I think they're both the same.
Ex-
But it is not, all of this common area can be seen from the lobby. That's not a solid, well, it looks like a solid line, it's not. It's this high with sinks, and you can see through it. It's the rope that was like in the stairwell.
I don't see why you can't put a wall and a sink on both sides, a wall and a door and a door.
Okay, I'm not an architect. I was told by the architect that we would need more space than this to achieve what you're asking for. So that's what I was told by the architect, so I'm just sharing that. Councilmember, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know how we got to the place where we're designing bathrooms any different. I didn't know there was an issue with the way bathrooms were built, that we would design it differently, right? Well, I don't know what was the impetus to make this different than any other building we have anywhere else in the city.
That's what the designers recommended. They believe this is the trend of the future. They presented that to the city council. I only remember one council member, Councilmember Clausen, questioning that. We had dialogue about it. He was satisfied, and we moved forward with this design, and it was a number of years ago.
Yeah, I think my concern goes back to, we've used it, example, I don't know how many times already tonight, talking about a wedding, right? And alcohol service, and then you're gonna mix that in with youth, and I just think there's way too much at risk there, and I would like to see a redesign.
Okay, Councilmember Diener?
So, I've been in a bathroom like this. I can't remember which airport, LAX or Japan. I don't-
CTAC has it right now.
Maybe SeaTac, maybe it was SeaTac, I don't know. And I didn't have a problem with it, but that's a controlled area. And so I was thinking about, what would be my experience with that versus, I think the firm mentioned that they have this in their office as well, and that's an adult environment. The airport's a controlled space, but this has been the subject of a lot of discussion, not just in my household, but with friends and my wife's coworkers, nurses, and many of these mothers don't seem to have an issue with it being a shared bathroom like this. I, on the other hand, have kind of begun to wonder, like, what if I was a mother and I had a 5-year-old daughter, how would I feel about that? And so I feel like maybe the happy compromise here is to suggest that one is upstairs is women's and downstairs is men's. I think that's the best compromise without actually having, or vice versa, without having to suggest what I think could be expensive redesign.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah.
Okay. How would a 96-year-old grandmother at a wedding go downstairs? How are we making people feel
We have an elevator right
based
next
off
to
of that? Yeah, again, she's got to go to a whole nother floor. Even with an elevator, it's not super easy for.
That's why I suggested men downstairs, but she had to take an elevator to go up.
Go ahead.
So also in this conceptual drawing on the second floor, we have 2 ADA restrooms, is that correct?
Yeah.
One upstairs and downstairs?
No, they're side by
No,
side.
They're side by sides.
Yeah.
So we have this complete separate, safe and secure ADA restrooms two separates, and then we have this bank that we're all discussing. Is that right?
Yeah,
Am I
because the
reading-
ADA
am I seeing that
is
right?
very common, is unisex.
Yeah, I think they're often called family bathrooms.
Have a wheelchair, you need that 80, you know.
So I just want to throw that out there because there are options for your 96-year-old grandmother if she's upstairs, and or grandfather, if they're upstairs. I got to say though, you're swaying me a little bit, Rob, because you're saying this is a half wall behind the sinks. My big concern with it though is there's only one way in and one way out of this area. And I'd rather have it a pass-through in that sink area than the way it sits right now. I'm not a fan of the unisex bathrooms. I could see this working, but I think the best concept at this point forward, I could see it working with an upstairs and a downstairs. Knowing we have 2 ADA bathrooms that are designated as well on each floor, I could live with that, but I'm not comfortable with it as a unisex bathroom on each floor.
And what if you have to change your clothes or get, you know, I mean.
You would do it in the stall.
Well, yeah, you go in the stall, but it looks like there's like one mirror and everybody uses the mirror to, I know, if you have to refreshen up and you're fixing yourself up in front of everybody. It's not just in a women's bathroom.
Let's hear from Councilmember Chang.
I just had a couple of comments to add. One is that these are rooms and not stalls, so that makes a huge difference to me. These are like floor-to-ceiling doors. These are not stalls where you see, you know, someone's feet under. I mean, so that I can see maybe in the future. I would actually go with this design, but have it stacked, and maybe 20 years down, if they want to make it all genders, they could, because they have solid doors for these rooms. I would agree with what Mark's saying, that there are ADA restrooms available. If we were maybe to look at maybe a phone booth or something, I don't know, seeing if there could be an additional ADA restroom somewhere else.
You have to plumb to it, but yeah.
That could be an alternative for the gender who is not the one, whoever the designated bathroom is for.
So I'm hearing some appetite for the compromise, which wouldn't really cost us anything, just to stack them.
It might even save us money if you don't have to go floor to ceiling with walls and doors. And
I think Fred brings up a good point. Let's leave that. I don't think we're saving a lot of money.
okay,
That gives that flexibility. If this is the wave of the future, it's built for it.
yeah.
It's not.
There's
It's
a
not.
lot of opinions about this. so.
Soundproof and floor to ceiling with ventilation.
Yeah. Let's go to Jay here. We haven't heard from Jay.
No, I've been sitting this one out. I've been to several locations, including basically where they've had shows with kids and unisex stalls. Hasn't been an issue. That may be because it's maybe a little bit more progressive. I don't know. For me, I would say that the easiest way to resolve this would be go with the stack, maintain the floor-to-ceiling doors. You have the ADA that can be a family room, or I've seen them where it has a wheelchair, a male and a female figure, so whoever could use it at the time that needs it, use it. One of my reasonings, I agree with Fred, hey, down the road things change. One of my reasons for continuing for the floor to ceiling would be there's always a potential of a restroom needing to be shut down, and in that case you might have to turn one into a unisex bathroom, and that would alleviate any issues about that. So I'm in favor of the stack and leaving it where it's at. So that's my sense.
And, it brought something up earlier, so I just want to kind of throw that out, like, maybe we should engage with the public. I know we did hear from one person. The only person that came tonight spoke about this particular issue. Maybe we want to hear more before making that decision, because Jay was right? We could wait for that next council. The next council is actually going to make that decision, because no matter what we decide tonight, they have the power of the purse. When we go to build this, They can say, I'm not going to fund it because I don't like the design. I would want to engage the public.
Yes.
I don't know that we need to engage the public on this. We've all been to different venues and places where you have to go to a different floor to use a bathroom. It's not that much of a hardship. So I feel like the best compromise is one we could make right now. And
Those are old buildings. This is a brand-new building. Those older buildings are, you know, at Fifth Avenue. You know, you go down below or you go up. But they're not unisex there either.
I'm not suggesting that. My comment was that we have all been to different places where you had to go up a floor to go to a bathroom or down a floor to find a bathroom. And I'm not talking about unisex bathrooms, dedicated bathrooms.
Does that make
This
it
would be-
right?
I don't think it's that much of a hardship,
I'm
really.
going to try to move us along here because we're ending the near, and we've got
I
other.
just got one more thing to say. If we are going to go with stacked and we want to have one be a men's room, include some urinals. Don't make it all stalls.
I'll raise that question. So, we've got at least a 20 or 30-minute executive session, so don't run off here. I don't think anybody's, we are where we are, okay? The building's designed, okay? Can we, I think the compromise that doesn't cost us any money is stacked restrooms. Can we, you know, some folks are wanting to leave it exactly the way it is, but are willing to can we get there?
No. And plus, we had someone in our audience
so I've got-
saying that to us, so I think we need to really honor
Well,
that.
Did you want to count votes to see if we got there?
Okay, so can I see who would like this redesigned, I guess? I can see a raise of hands. Okay, I've got 3. And I heard a compromise in stacked restrooms. Is there a show of hands who would be comfortable with that compromise of the stacked restrooms, leaving them designed the way they are to, as Councilmember Chang mentioned, you know, future councils, whoever it is down the road, could make change to this if the use. So can I see a show of hands that would like to see? Okay, so it's split, but it's afforded.
Gamble.
All right.
So we have 2 ADAs upstairs and downstairs, completely closed in, and stacks on each floor, correct?
I have to,
No?
I'll confirm that.
Please.
ADA family restrooms. I know the library has its own staff restroom.
I don't even want to make them ADA. They're not ADA. They're
Okay, I'm gonna punt the last meeting item to a future council meeting, and we don't, we'll get that back on the agenda. I think we've got a light agenda coming at our next council meeting, and hopefully we've got good bids for the demo of the buildings. Are you guys comfortable with foregoing committee reports? For time, or
I was just going to make one comment.
Transportation committee, I think, is the only one that's met.
No, land
EDT
use.
map.
Let's choose, land use and transportation, go ahead.
Okay, so land use, the main point, you saw the development activity presentation, but the main one I wanted to bring up was Bravo Terrace parking. We had a discussion about that, why that it was basically no parking in front of Bravo Terrace, partly sanitation reasons, partly because of extended RV parking, and so there wasn't any desire of the committee to move it forward to change the parking in front of Bravo Terrace. That was what I wanted to let people know. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, on land use, our next meeting is scheduled on the 20th, and I believe the mayor and I both have an event that day, and so I was wondering if there's a possibility of moving that to the 27th of August?
That's fine, I won't be in town.
It looks like we gotta find a new.
Okay, I'll reach out to you and try to find a different date.
My question is really, do we have an agenda, let's see what
We
the
have
agenda-
MFTE code revisions that we could talk about at committee that are ready to go, so
Okay.
otherwise it'll have to wait till September.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I would like to be there for that.
Yeah.
Okay, who's chair of transportation? I can't remember.
All right, so bear with me because it's hard to take notes fast while listening and also making your notes readable. So tonight we had our Transportation Committee meeting. There was updates on some projects. One of them included the active construction contract that we talked about tonight, voted on tonight. The other one was another one was Anderson Hill Improvements, and the Transpo Group is working on that. The Sedgwick Corridor, or the intersection from Highway 16 into town, that's being worked on. There will be some property acquisition on the east side near the crest of the hill that may be needed for that program. Bethel Phase 1, the consultant is ready to get started, and that's that phase between Salmonberry and Blueberry on Bethel.
We're getting ready to get started on right-of-way acquisition.
Getting started right-of-way acquisition. Okay, thank you for that. In terms of SR 166 or Bay Street, the project there has gotten NEPA approval, as I understand. So that's huge.
Huge milestone.
That's a big deal. Good job. Tremont phases 2 and 3, the outreach and concepts for that are going to be available to the council and the public in August and September, and that will inform on connectivity for non-motorized transportation. Jay had asked that an issue be brought up, which would have included flashing yellow turn arrows at Bethel and Lund, like you see at Jackson and Lund. We talked about that a little bit. The cost for the cabinet change out is not cheap, $300,000 to $400,000. But we also realize that at some point, relatively soon, that intersection is going to look a lot different with the roundabout. We talked about Etta Turner Park, and I think everybody knows where that is, by Damn Fine Pizza. The Public Works Department has observed that people are camping right along Etta Turner Park up against the curb. And so they had asked that we consider signage to allow for up to 2-hour parking in that space, and we all thought that was reasonable.
And I've talked to the West Bay Center owner, and he supports.
Right, yeah. Okay, and then we got an update on grant applications and working on 4 grants, including for Bethel and Tremont. That's it.
Okay, and I've got 3 quick things. Back to Bay Street, we received our funding documents. Noah and I did, and so Noah's going to start that process to obligate those funds and bring those to the city council. I've had some conversations previously with Commissioner Garrido, and Nick and I had negotiated a targeted annexation over on Sydney Road, and we've recently been talking about, taking a nibble out of maybe Mile Hill and Bethel South. I've talked to the current commissioners, and they seem receptive to that idea. And so I intend to, Nick's working on a letter that I would, and unless you guys object, to formally ask them to start that process that would involve, postcards and outreach to affected property owners and developing some documentation to what it means to join the city and so on and so forth. But the county seems receptive to starting that process, and so unless I hear any objection, I plan to send a letter out by the end of the week to the county commissioners, asking them for their response and support in moving forward. And I met with the county administrator last week, and the current commissioners are looking at annexations completely different than the prior commissioners had. With their budget challenges, they're literally looking. They're hopeful that this isn't just our first annexation, that and I don't think there's much, we could not take all of our UGA at once, but I think if every few years we took a bite out of it, and move that needle, that's something we're supposed to be doing under growth management, and they're looking for the other cities to do that too. So, this could be the first of a number of annexations over numerous years into the future.
Does that inform on annexation policy that we'll get to weigh in on?
There's a tool, it could be, but there's a tool that the legislature put in a few years ago that allows for an ILA annexation process.
Sure.
So that between we owe it to the affected parties to communicate with them, deal with you know, the one-offs that potentially don't want to participate, and if it's logical boundaries, you know, there's no
Yeah.
harm in that. But an island surrounded by the city, that probably doesn't make sense.
No, and I'm thinking more of, I get all that, more of where we would want to target our annexations. So target existing development versus, let's say, large tracts of undeveloped property.
So,
That has, each of those have different ramifications.
Right,
on
and
growth.
so the previous, I think we've talked about it previously, the annexation that we'd likely be asking for this first time. On Sydney Road, there's a 3 or 4 different
Yeah.
pockets of county that are
Yeah.
surrounded by the city. Those are just very logical.
Yep.
We would like, I think, to control the development activity on Bethel South, so we're asking for the entire UGA out to Bethel Towing from Fred Meyer. And then there's one little parcel in, I can't remember the reasoning on the one in Annapolis, the Retzel area. It's, and
Yeah, there's 4 customers that are on city utilities, but they're paying 150% of our rates because they're not in the city limits. So they actually, it just brings our customers into the city.
I think all those you mentioned, we talked about during the comp plan at one point.
Yeah, and the comp plan got in the way. And then the most recent addition, we go up Mile Hill, all the way to Whittier on the north side, but we stop at the Armory on the south side.
Yeah.
So to bring the city limits on both sides of the street to the same point. So it's not a large area. It's not going all the way up Mile Hill. It's going about halfway up Mile Hill.
Mayor, could we
We're-
see a map again of this? Because we're kind of talking around about,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm coloring it in my
I will
head.
email you that map.
Yeah, would you
Yeah,
please?
thanks.
I'll email out,
Okay.
I'll do that to you.
Yeah, that
tomorrow.
would just help a little
Yeah,
bit.
I have a map.
Yep.
Matter of fact, Nick can probably do it right now while I talk about my last item, which is these chairs. I think everybody but 2 liked, I'd like to see uniform chairs across here, and I think we're gonna address these chairs a little differently. I think why these other chairs haven't lasted the way we wanted is that they're being taken off the dais. It's not good for the pistons on them. And I think we're constantly playing musical chairs up here and taking the ones that work and the ones that are not very functional. Last person arrives gets to sit in the sinking chair.
Well, I arrived early and I have the one losing air right now.
So are you comfortable with replacing the chairs, the rest of the chairs? Are you guys good with it? Okay. And we were comfortable with
3
this
hours a
chair.
week, I can
because
make it
I bought one before I went out and give you guys. So, all right.
Go down on
I'm
that.
done. We are going, I'm gonna forego anything urgent, staff.
You have citizen comment period.
Yeah, yes, I do. And, yes, you have one?
We were going to talk about the draft EIS that the Navy issued and our opportunity to provide comments.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think the main concern for Port Orchard and what we ought to be communicating to the Navy is that they need to evaluate the transportation impacts on Port Orchard resulting from the increase in workforce and employment and people who are living in Port Orchard and working at the Navy and getting from point A to point B. So we are going to start drafting a comment letter. I'm going to be on vacation for our next council meeting, but I'll have Dennis share that letter with you before it goes out, and then he can complete the task of sending it in on behalf of the city unless I hear 4 or more objections.
So we're just gonna comment. And I would say impacts to Gorst are our concerns. Sedgwick Interchange and additional traffic there. And we have a roundabout project here at the bottom of the boulevard that I think we could hopefully ask for them to consider helping us for impacts. So we'll see if it goes anywhere.
What I would ask is maybe we can get the county to sign off on that as well.
Okay. I think
Maybe a
their
little bit-
issues are probably a little different than ours, but
Well, point A to point B issues are the same.
yeah, some. I mean, it's more global than us.
Gorst, yeah.
In Gorst.
In
and
Gorst,
into
yeah.
Bremerton. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Bremerton, we're working collaboratively with Bremerton, and I'm certainly, Nick can reach to the county. So, let's go to any other? Nope. All right, we'll go to our,
Just one more sign up for the Coffee with the Council for August. I have Councilmember Diener and Fenton signed up, so if there's a third council member, just,
Put me on unless I'm working that day.
and then you'll be back up. Gotcha.
let's go to our second citizen comment period.
Yeah, Robert Showers. Couple things. One is I've come to 4 council meetings now, and I've been waiting for this public comment interaction, and now it's getting pushed to another meeting. So I don't know what the problem is, but it seems like when it comes to this issue or a few other issues, everybody's in a hurry to go home. My time's just as much important as yours, and I don't see why this can't be taken up just like anything else. And the other issue is, I guess I heard that there's not going to be any separation of the men and women at the new center.
That's incorrect.
Okay? Because if, looking at your drawing, the new drawing that you sent over, there's no reason why you couldn't just put a center wall right up the middle and open up the front. And you got the same amount of stalls. No difference. And for capacity, I don't see a problem with that. I just don't understand it. But the main issue I have is this public comment with these interactions. Because 4 weeks now, or 4 meetings, and it was well talked about before that, before they even became on the agenda. So that's all I gotta say.
Appreciate your comments, Mr. Showers. This is the first time it's been on a business meeting. It was on a work study.
This was talked about at the workshop.
All right, anybody online wishing to, okay, go ahead. Clerk, I see a hand raised, and the clerk's going to bring you into the meeting. Please identify yourself once we get you into the meeting.
Well, I think Zoom has changed their settings. I need to report them. Just a moment. It used to have this here, and then it
You're
would
not a
drop
host,
down.
Ms. Wallace?
What was that?
And here it doesn't say Brandy Wallace is host. It says Janine on mine.
Janine may need to do that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so, okay, hold on, give me a second here.
I see the same thing that Brandy does. You can promote to a panelist, but it won't allow them to speak.
Hold on, let me try something else real quick here. Where is this? Sorry, I gotta come up here.
I have to see that screen, but it's this mouse. Hold on.
Hey, Nick, could you forward that to the full council to save me a step?
They were BCC'd.
He did? Okay, all right. I didn't see that it went to you guys too. All right.
They changed all the settings.
Well, I'm trying to make this co-host, trying to assign a co-host,
Matt. Fred said he got it.
So how do
Ah, you lost. That's not good. Yikes.
No, they're on this. No, they're gone now.
Oh, they dropped off, so I'm not sure what happened to them, but it's not.
Okay, we need to figure that out before our next meeting. Okay. Yeah, we lost him. Okay.
Technical.
We are going to go into an executive session we'll start with 20 minutes.
Okay.
You want to state
Yeah.
the statutes and the
Council will
reasons?
go into an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110, subpart
need to extend our meeting
1B
now.
and subpart 1I.
20 minutes will be
To
past
consider the selection of a
10:30.
site for acquisition and to discuss the legal risk associated with a proposed action for 20 minutes is what you said?
Yeah, and
with no action to
Councilmember
follow.
Morrissey brings up a good point. We need to extend, technically, yes, extend our meeting. Is there a motion to
Preemptively.
extend our meeting as long as is necessary to complete our business in the executive session?
Mayor, move to extend our meeting as long as needed to have the executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second to extend the meeting solely for the executive session. No action will be taken after the executive session. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are now headed into executive session. Yeah, Fred's right there too. We won't start the clock until you guys get back.
Recording stopped.